haven't been there in years. Okay, we are live. Karen? All right, good afternoon. This is a hearing of the Chatham Conservation Commission being held on July 27th.
She's doing it.
Microphone, okay. Being held on July 27th, 2022, in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Chatham Wetlands Protection Bylaw and Regulations. My name is Bob Rawls, and I serve as the chair. Hearings are broadcast live on Channel 18 and are also recorded for the on-demand archives available on the town's website. Today's hearing is being conducted in person and by remote video conference. Is that me? Remote meetings are currently allowed by the governor's authorization through, I guess at this point, March 31st, 2023, and I'm guessing that it's from now on, eventually. The agenda and copies of documents for review today are posted on the town's website. To all participants, after hearing from applicants, representatives, and interested parties, I'll ask for comments and questions from commissioners. Please remain muted unless you're speaking. If you're attending by phone, please mute using *6 and use *6 again to unmute. If you're on the Teams platform, indicate that you wish to speak by using the raise hand feature. If you're attending by phone, please unmute with *6 and address the chair. When recognized, please identify yourself for the record. If you're not a commissioner and you are on the Teams platform, please keep your camera turned off unless you are speaking. The commission will vote on each matter by roll call. So that we have a record of a quorum, I'll now ask each commissioner to indicate their presence. Vice Chair Bob Del Vecchio.
Present.
Janet Williams.
Present.
Karen Latin.
Present.
Cheryl Meservey.
Present.
Mary
President.
Sullivan. And Bob Rawls, I am here, so we do have a quorum. Did you? Yeah, I see it.
I'm present.
Good.
I'm
All right, so Nikki Smith, Chatham's conservation agent, will now lead us through the agenda, including any continuances.
We do have one continuance for 170.
Whoops. Get your knock already.
Right out of the gate. So there was a bit of confusion with 107 Main Street / 170 Main Street. It turns out it is 170. But enough documents had both addresses on it that they have decided, or we all decided, that it needed to be continued to re-notify abutters and just get the correct documents. So the 170 Main Street will be continued to August 10th. But other than that, there's no continuances. The first one up is a notice of intent for 52 Shell Drive. David and Helen Noss, map 14K, parcel 14B. W2B, it does have an SC number. I don't have it off the top of my head. They all came in yesterday. But construction of a swimming pool and mitigation plantings.
Would you like that SE number?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Russ Holden from Ryder and Wilcox.
Oh, I found it, 3563.
Yes. And the applicant, owner of the property, Dave Ganaus is in the audience to answer questions also. As noted, the proposed project consists of a construction of an 18 by 36 foot in-ground pool. Also proposed is the construction of a pool apron and a rock retaining wall. This is all shown on the site plan before you, dated June 15th, 2022. Also shown on the plan is the removal of one pitch pine and the proposed mitigation plantings. Unfortunately, the rock wall did not get staked for your viewing, and for this I do apologize. I believe, though, you could get a sense of its location referencing the stakes from the fence. The proposed pool patio will be constructed of pavers dried laid in bluestone dust. It will be surrounded by a 4-foot-high aluminum fence that will comply with all state and local codes. The rock wall will consist of a concrete masonry units faced with stone veneer. No work is proposed within the 0 to 50-foot buffer. There will be an increase of coverage in the 50 to 100-foot buffer of 1,350 square feet. 1,380 square feet of mitigation is proposed. The project is subject to a coastal bank defined by a 100-year flood zone AE elevation 11, NAVD 1988. The work will not impair the physical stability of the bank, nor groundwater and surface water quality. The work will not have an adverse impact on significant or active nesting or breeding sites for wildlife. The project will not have an adverse effect on identified habitat of rare or endangered species. Regarding the location, the existing leach area and grades influence the siting of the pool and patio. And the Canouses would also like to maintain as much of the existing backyard as possible for outdoor activities with their grandchildren. I now open it up for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Holden. I think I'm going to kick this off. Obviously, you're increasing coverage in the outer aura.
Yes.
Yes. So with the pool and pool apron, and the reasons offered for not siting it outside of the aura are that there's a leaching field, and then, as you just mentioned, or desire to retain lawn. How close or far to the leaching field would the pool be required to be?
It's required to be 20 feet,
20
no closer
feet.
than 20 feet. Right now, it's at 31.
Okay.
I did confirm that with the health agent this morning as well, that it has to be at least 20 feet from all components, 10 feet from the tank.
From the septic tank, right. And that's to the water edge, not to the patio or apron.
Right. So 20 feet from the septic or the leach field?
Leaching field.
Leach field, okay. So theoretically, it could be moved to.
It could be moved 11 feet in theory, however, then you get into a grading issue because the grades start to go back up towards the dwelling. So then you'd get into where you're doing more excavation to get the pool. Where we have it situated now is relatively flat it does go up to the east, but the majority of the pool is in an area that's conducive for the grading needed, reducing the amount of retaining wall that one needs to construct.
All right. The alternatives analysis for the pool didn't discuss, well, it was basically 2 sentences. And it didn't discuss alternatives along the lines of, for example, making the pool apron smaller, making the pool smaller, et cetera, in an effort to keep the pool out of the resource area. So now that you've indicated that there's technically some room to roam, as it were, I personally would like to see some thought about alternatives beyond just the one proposed. So anyway, that's my overall reaction to the proposal. Also, the performance standards discusses coastal bank, but it doesn't discuss aura, at least not as labeled. So, right, okay. I believe that was correct. So I think we will need some more attention to town of Chatham wetlands regulations with regard to the 0 to 100. Yeah, that's basically it for now. So I'm going to let others say if they have any comments. Do you want to go, Karen?
Well, I have a question. You say it's 1350. In your performance standards, you say the coverage is 1350. On the site plan that's the house one, you say it's 1363. So, I mean, it's not a big discrepancy, but it's, and then there's a
Where-
1340, you say 1363, and then you say net coverage increase 1346. So there's three different numbers.
What are you looking at? I'm sorry.
This plan that
Oh.
just shows where the 50 and the 100 and the pool. So there's three different numbers, and I know your mitigation is higher than all of them, but it would be good to have things match. I just don't know which it is.
Well, the net coverage increase was 1346. Is that the one you're looking at?
Well, and then below the proposed coverage, 50 to 100-foot buffers, it says 1363 square feet. And in your performance standard, you say a coverage of 1350 square feet.
Oh, yes, but the 1363 is the total coverage, proposed coverage within the 50 to 100. But there's already an existing 17 square foot that you
Okay.
subtract from that.
Oh, I see that,
And so
okay.
that gives you the 1346, and I just rounded it up to 1350. I apologize for
Okay,
doing
I
that.
just, it's good to have numbers match.
Well, these numbers, if you do the math, they come out to, so you're
Yeah.
saying that you object to the fact that I
Well,
rounded it
no,
up
I
to...
just was questioning why all the different numbers. So I didn't notice the 17 for the shed. So that explains some of it. So, and I understand that you rounded it up. I just was curious because numbers weren't matching.
Can I follow on with that? Just following up on that, I was looking to see, I see the pool is 18 by 36, which yields a 648 square feet, but do you know the size offhand of the apron?
No, I do not.
Because I'd like to, because when we need to be able to break those out.
The total, including what's not in the 100-foot buffer?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because some of it's outside, yeah, if you could show if you could break that up between the part of the apron that's in the buffer and the part that's out, so we know.
Well, you have, if you look at, again, the sheet that we were referencing before,
Yep,
within, well, I don't have the pool separated from the apron because I thought that was
so that
redundant.
1246 is a combination within.
Of the pool and the apron, because it was redundant to
Oh, I
do
see. And so,
one or the other.
and my third question was with the wall, but I see that from this calculation now, that's 100.
the 100, right.
Okay, well, I can take 1246 and subtract 648 from that, and I've got it, so thank you. Now I have that set. And while you're making changes and corrections, I noticed that the plan is not, site plan is not stamped. We'll
It
need
should be.
We'll need a stamped copy.
You don't have a stamped copy?
Well, we are
A
digital.
hard, where? No, that's the received. That's,
No, you should have had a stamped copy.
okay. No, the electronic one is not, and that often happens. This site plan, this one. Yeah, so you've got it on there. Okay. I don't know why, but often the electronics are not,
Wow.
it doesn't come through.
A lot of times it's, they upload everything and send it, and then
It gets
then
stamped
later, someone
later.
else stamps it and then drops it off.
Okay.
But I do have stamped.
All right, never mind. The last question is, so I understand that the mitigation is 1380 square feet. Is there, can you, I can't tell from the site plan whether it's those two separate areas, and if so, how they are delineated and measured? I see all the plantings and where they're going, but I don't see anything called out as a mitigation area.
Well, if you look at the legend refers to the plantings and proposed is in parentheses.
Yep.
So I didn't actually call it out as mitigation. I assumed that that would be understood.
Well, it is, but we are increasingly asking people to call out mitigation areas and either color code them or shade them or
So
something on the plan.
you should have a plan that's colored in color.
I think,
red
I
being-
think what she means is you kind of shade the
whole
whole
area, the
area
1380
around the
square
red.
feet.
Right, I understand that,
Yeah.
but in this particular case, what I did was I took the square footage of each plant and multiplied it by the number of plants, and that's how I came up with the,
Right, so then we actually have 3 separate mitigation areas.
Right.
And part of the reason that this becomes significant is that when we get to an order of conditions, we generally ask for people to demarcate mitigation area in some way so that landscapers and other people don't
Okay.
inadvertently go in there and mow. With 3 separate areas, and
I mean, I
you
can
can
put
see
a
the top
border
left one
around.
is a little bit spread out, so.
I can put a border around this and hatch it, but then the plan gets real busy.
Yeah, well,
And I'm
we're-
trying to make
we're
it as
used to busy
clear.
plans, that's not so much of a problem. But I now that I see how you've done it in the red, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge to make that a singular mitigation area. I wonder
No,
if-
it isn't.
Okay.
That's easily done, yeah.
Okay,
You-
and on the ground as
I draw
well.
a line around it. I know, what we'll end up doing, again, like I did with the number, I'll round things off as, if there's jigs and jogs all over the place, I'll just put in 3 or 4 stakes as opposed to 20,
Okay,
you know, to give you a sense of where the area is.
okay. Thank you. Just anticipating down the road that we don't have an issue. And I guess my last is a comment. I have to agree with Bob that I'd like to see some more analysis of the alternatives in terms of either reducing the size or shifting it further out of the resource area. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Janet. Bob?
I got a few things, thank you, Bob. Yeah, I agree. The apron seems to be a little large, and it's intruding into that natural area. There's a beautiful beach plum on the edge of that natural area with the high grass. And if possible, if we could save that pitch pine by shifting it around, reducing its size, that would be a benefit. The vegetable garden, was that ever permitted before it was put in?
There's a
Because it-
history to that vegetable garden. And would you like to, could Mr., or,
When we bought the house, oh, I'm sorry. Well, first of all, thank you for hearing this application. Appreciate what you do for us with the ecology and the beauty of the town, but, so we bought the house 14 years ago, it was pre-existing. So the former owner's name was Corinne Johnson, who was a member of the committee, and
Of the commission?
of your committee here. And so we just inherited the garden and have enjoyed it ever since. So is that what you wanted to know about how it got there? or-
Well, you know, whenever we go visit sites like this, we notice things that are in the no disturb zone, and this is. And
Yeah.
So we have questions. And
So I
yes, it's-
never-
I assumed it had been there for a long time.
Yeah, I never knew it was in the non-disturbed zone until we started the poll,
Okay,
because
okay, all right.
but as you notice, it just, when she set the lawn up, where the lawn ends is pretty much coincident with the 100-foot zone, and we haven't disturbed anything down below. It's all really very vegetated, as you can see. Pine, tall pines, scrub oaks, everything, so.
Right. Yeah, okay. Is that all for Bob? So,
I think that was it, thank you.
Carol? No? Mary, do you have any comments, questions?
I do not, thanks.
Okay. So I think we have a couple of salient issues that popped up here, mostly having to do with the pool. And so I think it would be welcome if you were to have a little discussion among yourselves about whether there are some alternatives to getting it out of the resource area more than, or to the maximum amount possible. And see where we can go, see where we go from there. Questions, comments, or,
no? I
Okay.
think you've summed it up. So you want to see, I guess I do have a question. So on the plan, you want to see a mitigation boundary and have it hatched, as well as the circles.
Just to clarify, when we get to the point of writing an order of conditions, assuming that we approve this and we get to that point, we have a number of specific conditions that apply to the mitigation area, which is defined with reference normally to the site plan. So that carries into the order of conditions. That's why it's important to delineate it somehow on the plan.
Okay.
I think part of the issue, I don't know if I'm speaking correctly for you, John, but very often when you have mitigation areas that are sort of disjoint and separate from each other, it becomes difficult to protect them, to demarcate them, and their ecological value is not as good as if they were contiguous areas. So that's part of what I think I was getting from what Janet was saying. Aside from the fact of how it's marked on the map, it's the fact that they're just three separate small areas.
Go ahead.
But I think Russ picked some of the zones because currently they're empty. There is no vegetation in those zones. So it's actually, the zone that's nearest the shed is open space, so it's creating more coverage in all those areas.
Yeah, and I get that. I
Yeah,
get
it's a
that.
well-vegetated lot, and it was
Yeah,
selective as to where we didn't want to remove vegetation to put vegetation in. So that's why there's three different zones.
understand. And just that when you take the long view, as we have to, looking down the road 5, 10, 20 years from now, you've got a mitigation area that is here, here, here. The chances increase for that to become landscaped over, weed whacked, forgotten about, whatever. And there's a lot more demarcation that's required. If this is the best, if this is indeed what you think is the best mitigation outline, then great. But we're just giving you feedback from our perspective on how sometimes that leads to unintended consequences, to have it balkanized, as it were. That's all. Guess that's it? Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
Sounds like August 10th.
August 10th, does that work for you?
I think so. I'll let Nikki know if it doesn't. So August 10th?
Yep, we can just continue to August 10th, and if it doesn't work, we'll
We'll
continue on the
continue to the next
10th
one,
to
right.
the
Okay.
next.
Right, okay.
I believe it'll be fine.
But also, I just want to remind you that there's this, in the performance standards discussion, you need to talk about, add some discussion of how it does and doesn't meet Chatham's requirements for the 0 to 100, the aura. Okay.
I'll make a motion that we continue 52 Shell Drive to August 10th, 2022.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Sharon.
Aye.
Cheryl.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
I vote aye. See you then.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have, we're going to do two of the next ones together, and then the third one separate. So we have 75 Tillipy Run, Chatham Seabreeze LLC, map 14A3, parcel N131, SE 103547, proposed rock revetment reconstruction and elevation extension, and 59 Tillipy Run, 59 Tillipy Run Trust, map 15A3, parcel 1, N137, SE 103545, proposed rock revetment reconstruction and elevation extension.
Hi, Catherine Ricks with Coastal Engineering, here on behalf of the applicants, and Katrine with Wilkinson is here with me, and we have a presentation. He's going to pull up the... And for the coastal portion of it, we have revised the plan to include grading on the fill that was to be placed on 59 and 75. So our grading plan is on the lower left, and then the Wilkinson plan, which is the restoration plan, is more of, I think, what has really changed on this. So I'm going to let Katrine do most of the presentation on these two.
Hello, everyone. So for both of these properties, we're obviously focused on restoring the area once the revetment construction is complete. So once the fill is in place, we would come in and do some fine grading. We would use erosion control blanketing if needed, and seed the entire area on both properties. And then we would come in and plant. And we've identified the planting on our restoration plans. You'll see that for 59, we're focused on proposing 70 shrubs. That's this one right here, 70 shrubs including bayberry, beach plum, Carolina rose, along with herbaceous grasses such as American beach grass, little blue stem, and switchgrass that would be planted in between the shrubs. And then for 75, it's similar, a similar approach. So we would seed the area, blanket if needed, and then plant the shrubs. In this case, we're proposing 127 shrubs, a bayberry, beach plum, and Carolina rose. And similar to the other project, we're also adding beach grass, little blue stem, and switchgrass. This project in particular, you'll notice we're also proposing a 2-to-1 replacement for trees. There are about 6 smaller, on the smaller side of oak trees that need to be removed because of the construction. So we would be replacing that, as I said, 2-to-1 with pitch pine, scrub oak, and white oak. And that would be 12 trees total. There are more significant sized trees that fortunately are not going to be impacted. So it's really some of the smaller trees on the site right along the revetment. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. It's a fairly straightforward planting, but it should, provide a nice significant buffer of native vegetation for both properties.
Thank you for the presentation. I think typically we like to hear from both sides of the fence, the engineering and the mitigation, because it all sometimes interacts with each other. But
And we've added the grading, and on 75, we've also added a couple dry wells for,
Okay.
because of the grading and being able to catch the stormwater runoff.
Right.
And then this is, I know when we were out there, it's difficult to kind of get to some areas of the top of the revetment. So I just was able to get out there and get some pictures. And these are the scour areas above the existing revetment at 75, where you can see the revetment has started to fail, and it's scoured a lot right at the top of it and at the stairs. So that's why we're going up in height in the revetment. The stairs will continue to be the granite steps at the bottom. There is also a path, you can see in the plan, the path that's existing. Some of those timber steps, because of the regrading, are actually going to be removed. The remainder, the few at the top, will be replaced with granite steps, and we'll pull out the old timber steps that are there. And the rest of it, anything below that upper landscaped wall is gonna be vegetation. It's just that whatever vegetation we are removing or placing the fill over is where their restoration plan comes in. There will be no removal of any additional vegetation in the area below that lawn or landscaped area.
right. Well, okay, I will ask a question. I know you want to discuss 27 separately.
Yes, yeah. if we can.
However, I happen to have noticed, or maybe I don't think I saw any mitigation on 27. So is the mitigation on these two supposed to account for, it is not?
No,
Okay.
we'll do that.
You'll do that later, okay.
So Wilkinson is working on 59 and 75, and Crawford Land Management is working on 27. So that will be separate when,
Separate.
and due to the fact that there's that return on 27, we had to revise the plans a little more before we were able to get it to them for their portion of the plans. And the access is on 27. There's a couple other things, so that plan is gonna be a little different. And so they haven't been able to get the restoration plan since we had to get those other
Okay.
plans over to
All right,
them.
well, that's good to know, helpful to know.
And our revised plans have been sent, all of this has been sent to Greg Berman, and I know we're waiting on him for his report on this project as well.
Have you had conversations, I guess you had conversations with
Yeah.
Greg and,
Yes, we've gone back and I've given him all the updated information. I think he was really hoping for the updated because we had given him the wave analysis and the initial ones. And then since we've given him the updated ones, I know right now he's on vacation. I know he's working on a couple other projects. So
busy guy?
I
Yeah.
don't know when he'll have this one. I don't know, Nikki, if he's given you an update.
He said, he is back, I think, from vacation, so I think he said next meeting, so it's kind of, I'm not sure if he meant our work session or the August 10th one, so.
Okay.
And probably be safe if it's fine with you for August 10th.
Yeah. And
But-
hopefully by August 10th, we'll have the
Yeah, I mean, he
CLM
said
plan, so.
that next meeting should be fine, so.
All right, was it my imagination, but did the height of the revetment go down from the initial submission? I thought it was at elevation.
The height hasn't changed on the
It
revetment.
has not, okay, because I thought it was going to elevation 20, and now it's elevation 15. It just looked that way to me.
I believe it's elevation 21.
21.
21, yeah, I mean,
Yes.
20.5 or
I
something.
know we've
like
probably
that.
looked at a few different ones, but yeah,
Yeah,
it stayed
but I
there.
thought originally it was going to, all right, so it has not changed?
No.
Because is it still a 20-foot high revetment? Okay.
We just revised, so we put the grading plan in on the fill and the contours on the fill, so that may have been where some of the confusion came in.
Okay.
Since it's going up and then back down.
Okay. So we're not, if Greg's report doesn't have any alternative suggestions with regard to these two, then this is your submission?
Correct.
As of now, okay. Anybody? Janet?
Hi, I may have missed it because these things have changed. And tell me if in the original submission, there's a more detailed access plan. How is,
So the access is actually through 27, so we'll show it on the next one, but the access is going to be through 27. I've gone out there with Denny McGinn, who's the contractor on the original one, and we've gone over it, and we've gone over the access, which will come over 27 and then come down and across the bank. He'll be able to reach it from there and build his way, phase his way back from the end of 75, working back towards the access, and then from the other end of 27, working the way back towards the access and then working his way out.
so that'll be we'll get a more detailed description of how that's
Yes.
all going to work and where machinery is going to be staged and.
Yes, I
So-
have some of that more on the 27 Tillipy one.
Okay, so the revetment that's there now has to be removed, correct?
Yes, he'll be able to reuse those stones, but he'll have to bring in some of the stone, the base stone that comes under. That would have to go in. There's gonna have to be new, as you can see, the geotextile has all
Yep.
fallen down, and since
Yep.
it's gonna be bigger, he'll bring
Yep.
that in. So he'll have to kind of take it apart piece by piece and rebuild as he goes, just with the tides and
Yeah,
Tidal
so,
area.
but it's going to be done from the top of the bank down, the machinery, or, because.
top of the bank or side, as long as he's not getting.
Right to the
yeah.
bottom of the, so it's gonna be tricky
Yes.
timing it with the tides.
Yeah. And then he might have to there is a permit for fill in this area, so if we can get fill in there before and then he'll be able to use that as a roadway, but there is a permit to place fill there, which is one of the possibilities, or he'll go from the top along
Yeah,
the
I
bank.
think they tried that last year, but it didn't last very long.
Yeah, it depends on if they do dredging.
Yeah,
so.
right, so, okay, so that's all coming, because, to be honest, though, I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about the issues associated with the impacts of the heightened revetment until I see Greg's report, so I'm gonna hold off on that, because that might answer those. But the other thing that I was looking for is there a nourishment plan? Is it-
Annual nourishment,
Yeah,
yes, and I did give those to, I have only, I have on 59, 160 cubic yards, and 75, 136, based on the full height of the revetment. and taking an average of, there's no cesium transects right there because there used to be the outer barrier. So we took the ones that were from there and averaged the ones that are out further for this in order to determine the erosion rate.
Okay, so where would I, I clearly missed that in the submission, so where would I find all of that?
Nikki, did I copy on the email to DMF when I responded to them? I can forward it again if I didn't.
It's a separate document, separate file.
Yeah, it was separate after the fact, with the NAGSP, they responded to us asking for those amounts and we were able to calculate
okay.
that. So I
That's why you didn't
thought I
say-
had copied
Wasn't
Nikki,
me.
but if I didn't, I can definitely forward that email.
Okay, and that does show the locations of the transects and all of that, great, okay, thank you very much.
Sure you did. But it may not have made it to the Dropbox, but,
And a final question for Katrine.
Sure.
So the restoration is mitigation, so, okay. And because there's no invasive management component to this, it's not calling for a land management plan,
Right,
which is why we just have the.
right.
Okay, that's all for me, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Janet. Cheryl?
yeah, if you could just send that again.
Yeah.
I just have a simple question, is why is there no staking? Like, when I went to the properties, there's no place that tells me we're at the 50 or at the 100. Is
There
it,
was staking placed out, but I know we placed that back in April, and I've been out there since, and some of them have fallen over.
Okay.
And some was like in the vegetation, and it's blown off. So if we need to restake it, let me know, and we could definitely
Right.
restake it. If there's any change when Greg Berman's report comes out, we can obviously go and do that again.
and my other question is, as this hasn't been built, I mean, grew up in Chatham a lot of the time, and we used to walk down there, and now there's really no access for people walking down. Is there any accommodation for the fact that because this is there, finding even the high tide line to walk out there, it's gone? So
Yeah.
we have really infringed upon the public's. I know the weather station is gone, so we're not coming down from there,
So
but
there
what
is talks about another potential staircase over there.
Oh.
That's something that is separate from these, but I know that there is some
Yeah.
talks, because that staircase over by the wildlife refuge was a combination of the 27 Tillipy. They would use it and they maintained that staircase, but
Right.
unfortunately it's eroded away. But from speaking with, over at the wildlife, they are considering putting another one in on
Right.
their property.
So if that actually is, will there be a way to walk in front of these properties? I mean, the last several years, we've actually walked on top of the revetment.
Yeah.
But is there any accommodation for people being able to walk there at all?
If there's, so there is a permit existing currently to do the fill, and potentially, like, we'll be able to hopefully extend it or do a new permit for fill in front. And then if anything with mean high water with the state requirements, we
Right.
have to have public access along the revetment, but the revetment, we're gonna try to put fill in front of it so there is some sort of beach there.
Gotcha.
But yeah, that's,
So there's not going to be like a top like there used to be that people could walk along the top of without,
the top of our revetments do have a slight,
it is,
you know what, I don't have the cross-section, but there is a slight little
Right.
area of the, almost like a scour overwash area at the top.
and how do the homeowners feel about people walking down the revetment?
That I don't know, I wouldn't wanna
Little bit of
speak
the
to, I know
life.
for state requirements at the mean, you know, at the tidal range for state requirements, it has to be accessible. But, it can be tough walking on top of some of these revetments, so I don't recommend
Especially
it for
one that's
everyone.
20 foot high.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one's pretty daunting.
Yeah, the owners, lawyers may not take to that too well.
Yeah, I'm not sure they'd
Yeah.
want that. So at the toe, though, if we can get some fill in there, it'd be good to have a little bit.
least for some
And the
of the
homeowners would
tides.
want a beach, so yeah, it's
Right.
gonna be something that we are looking into. But there is an existing permit, if like outermost or a couple other places are dredged, they are allowed to put it in front of those, so
Those.
that's something that will hopefully happen in the near future.
Okay, thank you.
You're
There
welcome.
there is the other access that goes through the neighborhood down to Monomoy.
Yes, there is, and they're very excited about us walking through
Yeah, they
the
love it. They love it
neighborhood,
to
too.
see us come through there, but, yeah, but nevertheless, that is a way to
Yeah.
get there,
Yeah.
yeah. You just have to endure the withering stares by the neighbors and the
The
signs.
young lady at the gate is very nice, though.
Okay. Is that it, Cheryl? Is it- all right.
I got a few. Thank you. On the southwest end of 79, where the plantings end, are there invasives on that edge, on that end?
You mean right along the property line?
Right.
Did you see any there?
I don't remember.
Okay, for the most part, there's really no invasives on.
Okay,
I mean,
so-
there might be a little bittersweet here or there, but we didn't, that's why we didn't propose invasive removal, because there's
Okay,
not.
so nothing's going to encroach into your new planting?
Oh, I see what you mean. From the neighboring property, potentially.
Is there any way you could put like some kind of a open area in through there, if there are?
Sure. I think, and really the way our plan is shown, there would be some space there between the shrubs and that property line.
Just looking from above on GIS, it doesn't look like it's, I mean, it's hard to tell, of course, but it doesn't look like there's a lot of invasive stuff on 97, which is the next door
Okay.
neighbor.
It's just something we increasingly focused
Yeah,
on, Katrina,
yeah,
is that is
sure.
protecting mitigation from neighboring invasive
Yeah.
patches. And the only thing we've been able to come up with is, and I'll ask you your opinion
Maybe.
about this, is the mow strip approach.
Yeah.
I ask all the specialists who come in here, what do they think about that? Is that an effective or pointless way of trying to protect a mitigation area?
It certainly would provide like visibility, and so you
Mm-hmm.
could see if the invasives were encroaching. I think it's a good idea.
Unless it's going underground, which they typically do.
Right, the bittersweet
Bittersweet,
roots,
yeah.
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 Travel 20 feet underground. I happen to know this for a fact.
But if there are, you'll take care of them? You'll eradicate them?
If you added a condition, because we didn't include any of that, but
Sure.
we'd be happy if you added a condition that said we would notify Nikki or something, we'd love that.
Okay.
Yeah,
And-
I would say just, when you go out there, evaluate the property line and see if you think invasives will come over. If
Okay.
there are, do a short, 3-foot mow strip between the 97 or 95 or whatever it was, and 75, do, a mow strip on the 75 property.
Sure.
If you think there are invasives on the other property that will creep over.
Okay,
Otherwise, you can go, right up to the property line,
okay.
as you basically have proposed.
And the path on 70, what is it, 79? 75, goes to the top of the revetment. Will there be erosion there, right at the top of the stairs?
I know there's existing erosion because of the way the picture in the upper left is the top of the existing stairs, but with the increased height and the way that the stairs are going to be done at the height of the granite, it's still gonna be the granite steps, but now they'll be at the height of the rest of the revetment. We shouldn't see that additional erosion at the stairs.
What kind of material is that on the path? Is it just
It's just gonna be the dirt path, and
Right.
then where those stairs, there's existing timber stairs, but at this point, because there's gonna be fill there, it's just gonna be the dirt path up to, some granite steps where we're gonna remove, I think it's just
okay, so you think that...
six granite steps instead of, there used to be a number of those timber stairs there that are
Yes,
kind
yeah.
of falling apart.
So you think the dirt path will be stable enough at the top there? Yeah. And the angle of the new revetment, will that affect the beach differently?
Because we are proposing, I believe it's a shallower slope than what's existing, With the shallower slope and the higher slope, in the higher revetment, it's going to absorb more of the wave energy and there'll be less wave reflection. So there should be less scouring at the bottom.
Okay. Okay, thank you, that's all I had.
Thanks, Bob. Anyone else? Upon reflection, Mary? All right, so,
We would just request the continuance till we
yeah,
get
that's
Greg
really,
Berman.
this is basically,
Yeah, it's-
this is just an update and a discussion, but we're not,
Yeah, and then what I was thinking is presenting this so that we get any of your comments and we
Right,
can potentially come back with any revisions or answers to the invasive question. I can get those volumes for annual nourishment and we may give a little more on access, if I can talk to Denny a little more, for next time. So, yeah, I can work with him because he's been out there now and seen the existing conditions, work with him on getting more detailed construction means and methods before the next hearing. And then hopefully we'll have Greg Berman's report in enough time to also respond to that before the next one.
right, okay. So we just vote, we just have a continuance here then for this.
August 10th again. I'll make a motion that we continue 75 Tilapy Run, 59 Tilapy Run, and 27.
Not 27.
Oh, that's right, okay. I'll make a motion that we continue 75 Tilapy Run and 59 Tilapy Run to August 10th, 2022.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Cheryl,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
and I vote aye.
Thank you.
See you then for that. Are you going to talk about, oh, you're not here for 27, that's right.
She's not,
I got it now.
okay. I don't know if Nikki has to
Yeah,
open
she has
it
to
first.
do something here.
All right, so the next one is 27 Tilapy Run, New Milford Realty Corp., map 14A3, parcel N137, SC 103546, proposed rock revetment reconstruction, return extension, and elevation extensions.
Catherine Ricks here on behalf of the applicants. So since last time we were here, we've significantly revised the return, and there's been significant increased erosion. I don't know if anyone's been out there in the last month. It's increased a lot since then. So we are still moving forward on the same track to keep this with the rest of it, but there's still potential, and we have these plans kind of separated on the return just to work with other contractors, potentially getting this, we might split this off as the emergency one if the other one's not moving forward as fast. So I'm just focusing today on our revised design for the return. Because of the increased erosion and because of property lines, what we've done is created a return that kind of angles off at 45 and back to 90. There is a bulkhead, a steel sheet pile bulkhead on the landward side, and then there's toe protection with the revetment. This toe protection revetment does not go as high as the revetment in the front along the shoreline. The stones that are there existing for what goes over onto the other property will be reworked into this, into either the full revetment or into the return. And these are the cross sections for that return. So you see the bulkhead and you see the toe revetment, which is not as wide or as tall as the revetment along the shoreline. And just a couple of updated pictures. I know last time I showed the May 3rd, 2021. And in here, I'm kind of pointing out, we got some aerials from Ted Keon, May 18th, 2022. You can see the big change in 1 year from 2021 to 2022 in this area. And I know some of us were out there. Coastal went and did an aerial last December, and trying to point out the stairs on that aerial versus the stairs in the picture. When I was out there, all the stairs are gone at this point. And I know we were out there in April, and you can see that those upper stairs were there. And then the picture in June, that black post is that fence post. I would not suggest going on the other side of that property line fence at this point that we were all pretty much on the other side of back in April. So with that increased erosion, we are really moving forward and going to be getting contractors on board to bid on this portion of it because it will be separate from the other portion when it comes to bulkheads and being able to install the bulkheads. The bulkhead will be installed, let me see. The bulkhead will be installed in, the bulkhead will be installed, and then the revetment won't come until there's more erosion, because we're not gonna plan on removing the coastal bank until it's eroded. Once it's eroded, then to the point where this revetment can be installed without removal of the coastal bank, which we're seeing the erosion pretty quickly, it'll be installed. So we don't plan on like putting the bulkhead in and tearing out all the coastal bank that's there. We want it to see it naturally erode. So none of that will be like removed from the site, and then this will be built.
So whenever the bulkhead becomes exposed at the bottom, that's when you bring in the stone?
Correct.
Bring it in from the top or from the bottom?
Hopefully from the same access that we would be using for the other portion of the project, but if not, we do have to look into other options for that. The bulkhead will be installed from the, pretty much, they can come on the driveway, and then there's a portion that they'd be able to get around the garage there on both sides in order to get that. The crane could sit in the driveway and get the bulkhead in that way.
Right. Yeah, so it's pretty clear that things are proceeding as expected, if not faster.
Yeah. It's surprising, like especially in the summer months when we don't have a lot of real heavy storms, but it's definitely
That's right,
been
we
eroding.
haven't had a big one yet, yeah.
There was one high water, high wind storm that we had that I know did a lot of that damage, but
Is Monomoy fine with you taking the rocks away?
that's something that's still to be discussed. But at the time when we initially started it, I believe they were fine with us doing that. And those rocks were initially, all that was paid for by the owner of 27. So it's just a matter of getting the access on their property to remove them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be beneficial to get rid of
Yeah,
them,
I
so.
don't, they're not doing
but-
anything but sitting out there at this
Right.
point. So it'd be nice to be able to reuse them within the revetment and keep it in one area.
And there's still no inkling from Fish and Wildlife that they have any intention of tying into whatever you're doing there?
No,
Okay.
there's not.
Seems like a missed opportunity, but
Yeah.
that's how it goes.
It's sad seeing how much of that has gone away in that 1 year. But they have said that they may, like I was saying before, the staircase for public access is something they potentially are looking into. So hopefully with that, maybe nourishment, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So.
Anybody have any questions here?
I just have a question. So what you're waiting for is for this to actually become on their property? Because
So-
right now you're in the national parks property? I mean, I'm just trying to,
The-
why the delay, I guess is part of what I'm asking.
We're going for the permit and we're going for all of it. And the only
Right.
reason we haven't separated off yet is if you file for an emergency, there's 30 days to get the construction done. So
Okay.
we need to develop our full-on construction plans, go to the contractors, and then at that time, this is why we've kept these drawings kind of separated. At that time, if the other portion of the project hasn't been approved, yes, it will be an emergency because we are trying to get this in to protect it.
Right, I see. Thank you.
Yep.
So the current revetment is having an effect on the federal property, do you think, the erosion?
At this time, I think the erosion is just, you can see it's all of that has eroded almost significantly the same amount across that entire property. At first, there may have been a little bit of wraparound, but there's no increase. If you're looking at the shoreline, there's no more increase on this side, except that it's going behind just because there's nothing to protect behind it. But there's no additional erosion right at that point behind that part of the revetment, other than just the waves being able to go and wrap around and bounce off the backside of that revetment. So,
Okay, and the new revetment, will that have a better effect on that area, or just the same, or?
hold on. So the way we have it is to go straight back to hope that we don't cause any extension towards their property to cause that end scour.
Right.
Most of this, the waves would come and they'd roll down the revetment and keep that on a majority of that or all of it on their property. We're not trying to increase the erosion on the other property. So we have it going straight back.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Following up on that, isn't the wave action in this area typically coming from the northeast so that the waves will hit that side of the revetment?
Some of it is with the way the barrier is, it's also coming, it's more coming straight at the shoreline there too as well, because it's not
Because of the
protected.
opening is
Like, that
changing?
opening is straightforward, so a lot of the waves that are really hitting in there are coming straight towards the shoreline.
Right, so
Which is
what
why I
I'm-
think you see that even erosion along
Right.
that shoreline.
So I'm looking at that, at those two photos, and I'm envisioning a bulkhead and a much higher revetment in the areas where the red circle is, and wondering, you know, how is that not going to exacerbate the problem at the adjoining property?
We're pulling back an angle and so we're pulling back along right at the shoreline, pulling back from the property line, and then going like kind of rounding that corner and then going straight back to try to reduce any of that effect that would occur on the other property, and then not putting in the revetment until necessary. So the bulkhead's gonna be there, but not removing any material, and then once that material erodes away, just to put the toe there, because instead of the waves hitting against a vertical surface, it would be a sloped surface and reducing that wave reflection.
That's what, yeah, you would need to hope.
Yeah.
So I think we also will want to see a construction protocol for both the bulkhead installation as well as the revetment construction. I'll just note in passing that, at least from my perspective, a timber walkway or stairway in the VE zone is a no, 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 no.
Yeah.
I
So
wouldn't
the-
approve, and
so-
part of it seems to be crossing into the VE zone.
So this one, we're not gonna redo the timber staircase that used to be there.
Right.
On the, and it's off of this cross-section, it's gonna be the granite steps within
Yep.
the new revetment for 27.
Yep.
And just a little timber walkway at the top, but not any timber stairs within the lower portions. Because
Okay.
I agree with you, we don't recommend, for our clients, we never recommend having those timber staircases below the BFE, because.
Right. It just,
They don't-
take a note of the plan, because it's hard to see, maybe because of the shading, but it does
Okay.
appear that the timber portion extends partway into the VE zone. So,
Okay.
And so now, where are we on mitigation for 27?
I had to make sure that we had these plans with the return and everything in there so that they would have areas
Okay.
for their full mitigation, and this one.
So they know where they're going to be.
So, yes, so Crawford Land Management's working on it,
Okay.
but they haven't had a lot of time because we had to make sure that we had these plans with the return, because that's additional area. So they do have it, and hopefully we can get it for the next hearing.
Thank you.
I don't, maybe I'm missing it, but how tall is the new portion of the revetment that you said is going to be shorter than that's going to be 20 or 21?
And unfortunately, I went so small on these cross sections.
Yeah,
But-
obviously I'm missing it, but.
Yeah, I want to say, I'd have to look at it again. It's lower than the 21. It was just because we only have so much distance between the property line, and we're really just trying to get a toe protection. It's not trying to protect the upper portion since the wall is there. So when the revetment comes around and the bulkhead is there, it will taper down into this lower section that's more just of the toe protection.
Anyone else? All right, so again, this is a sort of discussion. We know we're going to be getting a mitigation plan. And do you want to continue to the same as?
Yes, and I'll
for
be
the
able to
other-
get more of a construction protocol from different contractors from Denny for the front part of it, and talk to other contractors for the bulkhead and the return portion of it. Hopefully CLM will be able to provide a restoration plan, and I will be able to get you more on the cubic yards for the annual nourishment and the access, more on the access plan.
Right, okay, good. So we can just continue.
Make a motion that we continue 27 Tilapy Run to August 10th, 2022.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Cheryl,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
and I vote aye.
Thank you,
Thank you, we'll see you then.
and I'll just wait for the next one.
Yep. You're on again. 470 Shore Road, James Einstein, map 15A, parcel A8, SE 103554, proposed rock revetment, reconstruction, vertical and lateral extension, fiber rolls, and associated site improvements.
Okay. Catherine Ricks with Coastal Engineering here again. This is our 470 Shore Road. Last time you asked us to come back with a more of a restoration plan. So Wilkinson is working with us on this one. This is just on the left, the existing. On the right is the plan that I'll have Katrina go over in a second. Just more pictures of the erosion at the bottom where we're requesting to extend the height of the revetment and remove that pipe that's there that we discussed, and then our cross sections. And here is a more recent picture from July, and just showing some of the invasives that are there, so Katrina can go over their proposed project.
Okay, so we submitted a land management plan as well as a restoration plan. And if you look at our restoration plan, there's really 3 distinct areas shown, different colors of green. And that's really based on the existing conditions. When we were out there doing our field work, it was really clear that kind of squiggly line somewhat in the middle of the bank, everything landward of that from the top of to the top of the coastal bank was highly degraded and invaded with, as you saw from those photos, tons of bittersweet in particular. There's also Japanese barberry, shrub honeysuckle, lots of shrub honeysuckle, vine honeysuckle. And so we would be proposing to remove all of the invasives in that area. And then, as you can see on our plan, plant the area with native shrubs instead. Bayberry, beach plum, black chokeberry, and Carolina rose. We would also put down an erosion control blanketing. It's a steep bank, and get that seed in place, the grass mix that we, the Cape Cod meadow mix that would grow to hold that bank in place. And then, as I mentioned, there's kind of 3 distinct areas. So that's the first area. That's really where the majority of our work would be. Then if you see in the middle of the bank, we have just kind of a lighter hatch there. There are some invasives in there, but not entirely invaded. There's still a lot of really nice native vegetation like bayberry, beach plum, oak, cherry, scrub oak even, and some serviceberry. So we would just be proposing, as our restoration plan pointed out, we would just be proposing to remove the non-native vegetation. We don't think it needs planting necessarily, but we would add seed in there to hold the stability of that area. And then lastly, the area right above the proposed revetment, that's just restoring that area that would be kind of impacted by the construction. So we would be planting bayberry, for example, in there, and seeding, and probably planting some beach grass there too. So overall, we're proposing about 80 shrubs to be planted and lots of herbaceous species to really focus on the stability of maintaining the stability of the bank. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions.
I think Janet has about 20 or 30, but
I have a few. And I will start by apologizing. I was not here at the initial hearing on this, although I did watch the recording. But there were a couple of things that I wanted to go back to that had been brought up that I didn't think had been explored enough or answered enough. But I want to start with really the basic nature of this project. I will say that the narrative is a bit confused because it refers to reconstruction of an existing structure, modification of an existing revetment, repair of an existing revetment. So it continually kind of recharacterizes what it is, and it's important because it seems to me that this is not a repair. The revetment is doing what it's doing, it's just very low. And I understand that, and I'm not going to quibble with the current height, but I'm assuming that, again, as until it be run, the existing revetment stones will have to be removed, at least initially, to do this. So this is really a reconstruction
Correct,
project.
it's a reconstruction, yes.
Okay. And this is a coastal bank that's a sediment source to the coastal beach.
A sediment source and protection for the
And a
bank
storm,
above,
yeah, protection, it's both.
Yes.
Okay. So then the regulatory requirements for coastal erosion structures in this location would apply to this reconstruction.
Mhm.
That said, the house is pre-78. It had been, although I don't know if we have found any record of the initial permit that permitted the existing revetment. We'll talk about that. But anyway, so the house is pre-78. But where it begins to fall apart a bit is the requirement in the regulations that no other alternative is feasible aside from the construction of a hard revetment in this area. And I didn't hear a satisfactory response to the question that was posed at the last hearing, which was, why would you not consider a soft solution above this revetment rather than taking the revetment all the way up 20 feet? I think I would have expected that to have been thoroughly assessed and analyzed as an alternative to doing this revetment. I heard the response that it's, we all know that sea level is going up, 2.5 feet is projected by 2050, storms are increasing. That said, there's a lot of assumptions that go into the statement that, well, the revetment needs to be at 20 feet to anticipate future impacts. So, for example, I would direct your attention to the property at 298, 2 doors down. That property, it's not adjacent, but it's next to the one that's adjacent.
498.
498, I'm very sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
Which had much more severe erosion and scarping. And in 2014 had applied for a revetment to deal with that, which was ultimately denied because the house was not pre-78. And it came to us in 2018 with a proposal that came from Wilkinson to do a hybrid system of coir fiber rolls with reinforced high marsh, planted with high marsh species, and regular sediment nourishment. Can I share my screen? Is that okay? Is that possible?
Yeah, do I have to?
Let me just see this, if this is going to work. Share. I don't know if that's going to work. So that was, right, that was the pre-2018 condition of two, so your property is 2 more to the left. So we approved that hybrid system, and this is the current condition of it. It's doing very well. I think that being only 2 doors apart, 2 contiguous property, they're subjected to very similar wave action and storm action. So I would like to see more analysis done on something like this before we jump right into taking the revetment up to 20 feet.
Okay,
I think that needs to be examined.
I can provide more on that.
Okay, that's great.
And just jumping on that, though, I'm just looking again at GIS from above, and it looks like 500 Shore Road doesn't have any protection, whereas 486 and 454 are both revetted, so it would be basically cutting out the revetment in the middle of 2 properties that have a revetment. So that would just be something that I would be curious about if it would work, because there's rock on both sides. So just in your analysis, I'd be interested to see what you thought about that.
I should stop sharing. Okay. Okay. And then let's assume that some increase in the height of the revetment is ultimately justified and permitted. It raises the question of what is the impact of the height And I think that maybe whatever Greg Berman says about the other may be interesting and informative here. I mean, it's always been my perception and my belief that wave action hitting a hard revetment causes more reflection of energy. You made the statement about Tilapy, and it's also in here that says the additional height will absorb more wave energy and reduce wave energy currently reflecting off the bank. That's a head scratcher for me. How is it possible that wave energy hitting a vegetated bank reflects more energy back than hitting a hard revetment?
With the vegetated bank, it's one solid where when you have the rocks, there's some voids in between the rocks, so a lot of that and that the roughness of the revetment versus just a flat bank of sediment absorbs more of the waves. And then with the slope being the 2-to-1 and the roughness there, it's going to reflect less. But it's the roughness of the voids in the rocks that actually is able to absorb the wave energy.
I hadn't thought about the voids. That's an interesting point. Okay, I'll keep that in mind as we.
And the rocks shift, and you can see it, the rocks shift and the voids and everything, they just, as if they're keyed in correctly, they won't displace. And the rocks, that's why you have multiple layers of rocks, and that creates those voids, but the stability stays, and that's what absorbs more of that wave energy.
Thank you for that. I have to add that to my notes here. But one impact that strikes me as inevitable from something like this is going to be the impacts on the beach and the potential loss of beach elevation. So similarly to what we were talking about at Tilapy, we'd like to see information and measurements of the current elevation, and then we would build that into whatever order of conditions to do annual or regular monitoring of that elevation to be able to trigger some kind of a nourishment activity if it begins to drop. There's also going to be impacts to the beach, the tidal flats, and the salt marshes from construction activity. Again, haven't seen a construction protocol. This has a little bit more space. Mean high water is, you've got a small area between the revetment and mean high water. But it's tricky, and especially if there are contiguous shellfish beds or salt marshes that need special care and protection. I also didn't notice the returns. It looked to me like the revetment is going bang up against the property line.
It tapers above what's existing, it tapers into the property. So
Some small tapers there.
It's pretty small.
it should, at the top, it's 10 feet from the property line,
Okay.
and it tapers in that way. So what's up against the property line is where there's existing rock on both sides.
On both sides.
So both sides have existing rock revetments. So
Okay.
the bottom where it's up against the property line
Yeah.
is where there's existing revetments, and then this tapers in once it's above those revetments.
And that taper that you're showing there is sufficient to prevent any unscour?
It would keep it on their property
Keep it on
if there's
there. So
end
that was my
scour.
question.
Once the
Would you
waves
pull
get
it
up
back
to
from the
there,
property
yeah.
line so that,
Once the waves are at that height and any scour, it should keep it right on there. What we've noticed is end scour is typically around 5 to 10 feet, which is why we do the 10 feet at the
10
top
feet?
of our tapers.
okay. Right. Nourishment, I noticed it's 9.5 cubic yards annually. But it's focused on these ends. Is that?
We like to keep that focused on those because if you place nourishment on top of the rocks, it just washes away much faster than what that erosion rate would be on the regular bank. And so that's why we focus it on where there's bank area, but that can always be conditioned separately.
We could do that so that whatever the annual monitoring of beach elevation is telling you about where nourishment might be needed, it could be tied to that. We have some conditions for that.
Okay.
Okay. On to the mitigation plan. So I see, I read the report about the top of the bank being extremely degraded by invasive vegetation. Hang on one second, I want to see here. I want to see here. Oh, it's going to open that way. So my question is this going to work? It's showing up there, but are you, oh, you're projecting, okay. Just give that a second, okay. So this is just shot from partway up the steps at the first. It looks to me, as an observer, that the top of the bank is heavily treed. And I know that you said it's, a lot of it is white poplar.
Yep.
That said, the first thing is that the notes also indicate that white poplar is not a listed invasive in Massachusetts. So, and I wonder what ecosystem services white poplar and the other sort of large vegetation at the top of the bank are performing, in addition to what they are obviously performing, which is providing some stability for that bank. I worry about taking out a large amount of vegetation from that top of that bank and what that can possibly do. We've seen more examples than I want to care to admit, where the removal of vegetation, particularly at the top, has destabilized the bank, and even with erosion control blankets, depending upon exactly how steep. This is a very steep slope here. So I'm very concerned about pulling out vegetation that could ultimately destabilize. An example is we permitted 236 Stage Neck Road. A company prior to Wilkinson being involved had taken all the vegetation off the bank there, and then Wilkinson got involved and has been struggling to stabilize the bank since then. Hello, where's the picture? That's frozen.
No, isn't she projecting?
No, I am.
Mouse went away.
Yeah, I don't know why it's, but, oh, I have a great, well, anyway, I have a picture of what's happening at the top of that bank, which is with the removal of the vegetation top, it's slumping very badly, and it is a real problem, even with the erosion control blankets and the planting that's happened there. And so I worry that it's an unforeseen consequence of doing what we thought was the right thing, which was removing the invasive vegetation, ultimately ended up in causing some real stability problems that haven't yet been resolved for the bank.
There was no invasive plants at 236 Stage Neck.
There were no plants there. When you guys got involved, somebody before you had taken everything off the bank. So it was pretty denuded to start with. Let me see if I can do it this way.
It was a woodland community, a native woodland community.
At one
With
point
no-
in the past, it was. Let me just see. Come on. Hang on. I'm sorry to take this time, but this is a worthwhile point. This is what it looks like now. And you can see that the top is beginning to slump quite badly. It does have that access road that we approved is to provide access, because their fiber rolls went in down at the bottom.
Right.
Right. But every time I see this, and I see it a lot, it reminds me of the risks of removing too much vegetation, which may be invasive or may be less desirable than the natives that we would particularly want, and what kind of unintended consequences can flow from that activity. So I listen to you, and I wonder, how do we avoid this kind of a consequence?
I can assure you that there's no sloping there. I mean, I'll go there today. That applicant, that homeowner would be calling us every day if there was slumping on that bank.
He says he is.
He's calling us all the time?
He said he's been
I
trying
mean,
to
I
contact
I haven't been there recently, but I'll get the information for you for the next hearing.
Okay.
This was also a coastal project, and there had been one or two really large pitch pines that were causing weight on that bank.
At the very
And-
top of it, right?
Yeah, and that's what Coastal was advising, to get rid of those to reduce the weight on the bank.
Yep.
And that had been a road, there had been a road there historically. So I think where you're saying they're slumping, there's like
That's the access
there's
road that
always
cuts
been
there.
an old like cartway there.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to get more information. I mean, this is a separate project. It's
Yeah.
not
No, I
involved-
know, but it's when it came to mind immediately when I look at.
Sure.
And I've seen other examples where a lot of vegetation is removed, and then it becomes a struggle to keep it stabilized until the new vegetation takes root and begins to really. So I'm wondering whether if there are white poplars at the top and they're providing some service and holding the stability of the bank, can you rethink removing all of that? That was my question.
Yeah,
That took me a long
yeah.
time to get to that, but that was
Sure.
really the question.
I mean, we can definitely relook at that, look where the poplars are. I mean, honestly, I think there's also, in that area, there's cherries and things that we wouldn't remove.
Mm-hmm.
And that photo you showed, those large oaks are not in that area.
Okay, because when I looked, yeah,
That photo was showing, like right in here. So I believe the photo you had,
uh-huh.
that those large oaks are outside of where the majority
So
of the
that's all
removal.
staying, that would
Yeah,
all. Is
yeah,
there
right
a-
there.
Yeah, so that's the middle of the bank, what I'm seeing there at the top of
Yep.
that photo. That's not the top of the
And-
bank.
Right.
Okay. Well, that's helpful, because I couldn't get to the top, and I thought that's what I was looking at. Is there a vegetated buffer strip at the top of this bank of any sort, or is it lawn right to it's lawn?
Yeah.
I think we might want to think about, whether putting something up there to protect that bank from the top.
Yep.
From erosion occurring from the top would be a sensible thing to do. And that's all I have.
That's it? That's all?
That's it.
Did you leave any questions for anybody else?
Well, they sort of flowed in order, so I just decided to keep going. I'm going to shut up.
Since you
now.
brought up VBS, which sort of VBS are you thinking? We do have requirements for VBSs,
Yeah.
and so,
Yeah. We'll have to go back and look again at the plan and see how much area is available, how much area is available, and what would make the most sense, but I would look to Katrine to her
Sure.
expertise to propose something that would be designed to facilitate the protection of the top of that bank.
okay. All right. Anyone else up here? Comments or questions? Bob?
Got a couple, thank you. Again, like Chillipe, on the property lines, are there any invasives that will encroach?
Definitely on the northern property line.
Okay, so could you put like some kind of a mow strip in or
Yeah.
something like that? And will there be demarcation at the top somewhere?
Yep, we can add that detail.
Okay. And there was a gas tank down below too, besides that pipe railing. It may have been removed since, but any debris would be helpful to, would be nice to remove any debris or any trash that's down there. That's all I had for the moment.
Okay, Bob. Anybody else over here? I just want to touch back again with the fact that this is for all intents, as far as we know, an unlicensed revetment. We haven't been provided any documentation that shows that it was ever either licensed or that it existed prior to 78 or something like that. And so, I know it looks old, it's probably been there a long time, but if we were to go ahead and approve extending this 20 feet up, I think we ought to be on solid ground in terms of whether or not it should have been there in the first place. Probably was supposed to be there, but for the record, at the very least, I think it'd be a good idea for you to try to dredge up any evidence that it did exist.
Yeah, I reached out to DEP that they're busy and haven't gotten back to me because they can't look it up based on this actual address.
Okay.
Because what we found was a plan from '83 when it was considered an existing revetment on the plan, but that was when these lots were, it was created into the neighborhood, so we don't know the actual address, because that's why this exact same revetment goes across 3 properties from the Chatham Fish Pier.
Oh, I see.
So it was built prior to the Shore Road neighborhood being developed. So DEP is looking into it, because we are trying to find that, but it'll likely have to go back to when it was DPW and getting back into those records, determining what was the actual address used for that structure.
Yeah.
So
okay,
we're
good.
looking into that.
So you are looking at that, and that's
Yeah.
good. That'll be very comforting to have some evidence of that.
Yes.
And, the reason, I guess, we're starting to see more of these 20-foot-high revetments, obviously, and that's why we're asking a lot of questions about them, because I have a feeling this won't be the last of such, and we're going to be seeing more and more. So I think we want to get all of our thoughts and requirements in order, and so that we don't have to struggle with it from here on out. All right, so what do we have? You're going to look at an analysis of solid solution alternatives. I guess including that would be where it's maybe part revetment, part soft, all soft, whatever.
Yeah, I'll go further into the, I believe I had a hybrid alternative in there, so I'll dig deeper into that and give you more information on that. And
Yeah,
I know,
because the picture that Janet showed of that successful solution, makes one stop and think, well, why wouldn't that work there? Yeah. What else are we looking for?
like more of a construction protocol.
So, yeah,
I was
okay.
asked about that. And then a potential trigger point to look at the beach elevation. And I know in other projects in another town, we've actually drilled holes into the rock at the current beach elevation, so visually anyone could go
Oh,
out
wow.
there.
That's nice.
So that's something.
I like
Just so we don't have to go out and survey, and anyone else would be, like, anyone from the commission would be able to go out, look at the point and see where it's dropped. It wouldn't have to be a full-on survey every time being submitted. Anyone could visually go any time of the
But
year
wait
to
a
see
minute, you
it.
just
So
said the rocks moved around, so,
they adjust slightly, they don't adjust a
Okay,
lot. So
not
you'd
very
still be
far,
able to
right?
see that difference in the height of the beach.
all right.
All right, so just to recap, I have, you're looking for the license, potentially adding the VBS, the vegetated buffer strip, removing the pipe and any other debris that may be out there, demarcate the plan to keep invasives at bay from, I believe you said, the northern property. It looks like the other property is basically lawn right up to the property line.
Yeah.
Add the benchmark for beach elevation, and then just further dive into the alternatives analysis on soft and hybrid solutions.
Sounds about right.
Sounds
All right.
right.
Sounds like a complete summary.
So do you think August 10th again, or a little bit longer?
Just because I have the Tilapy ones too.
Sure.
Yeah, I have a lot.
And it'd be nice to see what Greg has to say on that one as well before really getting in too deep into any of this. So can we do the meeting after that, please?
Yep, so that would be the 24th.
I'll move that we continue 470 Shore Road to August 24th, 2022.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Cheryl,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
and I vote aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we want to take a break? Yes, we have one
It's been a
nod.
long time.
Since we had to take a break, yes.
Well, we are an hour and a half in.
Yeah,
so
let's take a,
that's-
let's just take like a 7.5, no, 8-minute break,
Okay.
something like that.
Dallas, is that okay? You hear break? Okay.
Yeah, he's got it. Okay. all back. Let's see, is Mary back?
Are we doing the next two together too?
Yeah, Thad, did you want to do 98 and 100 together?
Yes, I would.
Before we go broadcasting again, I just have to say,
Okay, we're going to go, we're on the air. So we are back. And
All righty.
All right, so the next notice of intent that we have, we're going to do the next two together, 98 Oyster Pond Furlong. Stephen and Haley
Nadas.
Nadas, map 13E, parcel 2911A. They do have SC numbers, SC 10356, sorry, 3561. And that is utility work, sewer, propane, water, electric, generator, and fence. And 100 Oyster Pond Furlong, John A., sorry, Nadas? Nadas.
It all works.
And Stephanie Hornung, map 13E, parcel 3011, SC 10356. Again, utility work, sewer, propane, water, electric, generator, and fence.
Alrighty, for the record, Thad Elbridge, East Southeast. I've already heard the comments about the busyness of the plan, and there is a lot going on in this site. We have Oyster Pond, which has the coastal bank, and all of the other shoreline-related wetlands. And, sorry, I'm just trying to... Oof. The computer hasn't been used in long enough. Things are not right. So, yes, we have the Oyster Pond, Salt Marsh, Beach, Coastal Bank. We have a presumed river, an associated BVW, and that BVW comes right up to the back of 100A. And I'm going to try this. If it's too bright, I will stop. So that BVW comes right around back onto the property back here. There's the potential river. The coastal bank, you can see it in these over here. The coastal bank, the 50, the 100. The BVW, the 50, the 100, BVW on the adjacent property. And the one access in for both properties comes right over an easement that's over the stone driveway that exists out there. The previous owner had come to us, we had done some conceptual work for what could be done for sewer out here. There's a culvert that runs underneath that driveway. If we were to raise the driveway back closer to the property, we could potentially get gravity out here. It would go right on top of that culvert, and at some point, they're going to replace that culvert and hopefully expand it. So if we put gravity in, it would preclude the ability to be able to expand, which I think it'd be important to expand that one day. So we've decided on directional drilling, low pressure force main, basically, or low pressure services. There are two stubs, and under the sewer rules, we have to put in two individual services. So we're going to put those both in the same pipe and directional drill that underneath the driveway. For those not familiar, directional drilling requires digging a hole at each end. They set up the drill rig at one end, drill through, and then pull the pipe back. It's kind of a neat process, and the fellow around here who does it, Eric Drew, he has 3 machines. He can do up to 36 inches of pipe coming back, which is pretty wild. He rarely does that. In this case, we're looking at two 6-inch pipes, because we'll have a pipe coming back that'll have the water services in. They decided to take the opportunity to replace all of the utilities that they could, so it made sense to do that one-directional drilling. At the same time, they would like to replace the electric service. That doesn't have to be as deep as the sewer, and we don't have the constraint with the culvert, so that'll just be trenched in underneath the driveway. So, once we get onto the site, things continue to be complicated because we're putting everything right in that front corner. So we're looking at 2 pumps right on the property line, right in here. And hopefully that makes it a little clearer with the detail. Because they're going to pump, they'd like to put in generators. Because of the configuration of the property, installing gas out here means they'd have to install gas main, and they looked at that as cost prohibitive, so they've elected to put in 2 propane tanks, one for each generator, so they keep the property separate, even though there'll be an easement to have them on the same property. Those will feed the generators. We want to put enclosures around both of those, just little enclosures, and that will give them a place to put the covered trash bins. So they don't really have any other spot on the property. They currently put it in the garage. So from there, they have all the utility connections going to the 3 buildings, and the gravity sewer coming from each of those buildings back into the pump stations. The 3 septic systems on the property will be abandoned. That'll be pumping out the septic tanks, rupturing the bottom, filling them in with sand. The leaching can stay or go. It's recommended that it gets filled in. We have an application we're working on now where they did fill in the leaching, and now we want to use it for drainage, so we'll be back to you to reuse that. In this case, there's not a huge benefit for them to use it for drainage, so they will likely fill in these the leaching components. You'll see that there's a certificate of compliance request as this system, somehow that slipped through the conveyance, and I can't remember, was that 93? Sorry, 92, that was applied for and installed. Obviously, we're abandoning the system now, so that should be fine. There's 2 other improvements on the property. We were proposing an air conditioning generator up here on the north side of 100A. They lucked out with the supply chain, and one came in and they installed it. Unfortunately, they installed it over the property line on the town property. We're working with zoning right now to figure out what's the best location on the subject property right next to the building to put that. It'll likely be adhered to the side of the building. While we were staking it, we noticed that they had installed a rinse station at 100. We located it, we notified Nikki. We'd like to add that to this application, just because it is such a small item. That's about 75 feet from the top of the coastal bank, and that'll give you the opportunity to condition it to ensure that it is a rinse station and not an outdoor shower. With the changes, there are bollards that are needed. We'd have some boulders or otherwise that go around the propane tanks. The driveway has to be shifted a little bit. And then we have our mitigation that we're proposing for the minor increases as high bush blueberry. Most of that would be on the town of Chatham side, as there are lawn areas that extend over the property line. I think I have everything, but I'd like to open it up to questions, because I'm sure there are plenty.
So the town knows that there's been encroachment onto town property, I assume. You've notified the town knows?
We've notified you, and this
Us,
property was
okay. That's-
donated to the town of Chatham for conservation purposes.
I see.
I believe this encroachment was occurring before the property was donated to the town.
Okay. Okay. I'm just going to open this one up because I have no idea where to even begin. Anybody? Okay, yeah, please.
One simple question for the
Okay.
edification of those who haven't been through a riverfront
Oh,
situation before. Can you please explain why we have a, quote, presumed river, end quote, triggering all of these 200-foot setback requirements?
It's a blue line on the USGS map. The funny one is if you get into the legend for the USGS, there are, I believe, 3 items that are blue lines. One of those is intermittent stream, one of those is perennial stream. I'm not sure what the other one is. We've actually done the observations on this, and we've proven that it's not a river. That was right at the beginning of July, and we're going to be submitting that information. We're still meeting all of the riverfront requirements. We're keeping the work outside the 100. We're obviously doing work within the 100 because we're underneath that driveway that's completely within. But we're not increasing the area, the coverage that we have.
Who do you submit that documentation to, USGS?
You,
Oh, so are we empowered to make that determination, whether the actual
it's a-
data shows that something is or is not a river?
correct. It's if during a non-drought period, if it's not flowing for 4 days within a year, then it's technically not a river under the,
Someday we'll be in a non-drought situation.
well, in the
Maybe.
beginning of July, we were in a non-drought situation. So there was a sweet spot in there where the real test of a river is it flowing during that time? One of the segments of Andrews River over in Harwich is still flowing today. And that's clearly a river under the Rivers Protection Act. This one was marginal to begin with. When the town did the work for the sewer project, when the town did the work for the drainage on the conservation parcel to the north, it was determined to not be a river at those times. I think it was David Clark did some work further upstream, and the presumption was made that it was a river. When we started on this, I contacted the agent and said, what do we do? And she brought up that, and we went forward as a presumed river.
It just complicates something that's already quite complicated, so. But I
Why
do,
make it
I know
easy
the
on
rule
this
about
one?
the blue line on the USGS, and
And
I
that's
was
just a
wondering how you overcome
presumption.
the presumption of that something is or is not a river, so.
That's it.
That was my easy
That was your
question, my
question,
easy
okay.
opener, yes.
Is there a fence between this property and the town property?
That fence will be removed. It's on the town property.
It is on the town property, okay. Is there a way to tell is there a way for people to tell where the town property starts, when the fence is gone? In other words, if it were relocated on the property line, would that be a
So
benefit?
if I recall, it's a stockade fence.
Mm-hmm.
We will be putting the enclosures pretty close to the property line. And then we have the mitigation that's going right over the property line to take out the grass.
Yeah,
So, and that comes back onto the subject property. If they respect the mitigation, then it doesn't matter where the line is.
I'm just looking over at Nikki because, do we need to do anything for them to put their mitigation on town property for their project?
No, I don't think so. Because we would have no problem with native plants being planted on our conservation property. I mean, I don't have the deed or anything in front of me, but in general, this commission is, in charge
Just sort
of
of
what is done with the property. So if you're fine with natives being planted on there, obviously, this isn't the best time of year, so hold off a little bit. And to the fence thing, I would be 100% fine with like a low split rail fence on the property line. just so in the future they know, like, this is the end of our property and the rest is town of Chatham. So that would be something if they would be willing. But again, if you, as you said, if they do maintain the mitigation areas, then they wouldn't, I mean, we generally ask for demarcation of mitigation areas anyway, so, so that's just something to maybe consider and solidify.
And if I could say, this encroachment has been here since before 1938.
Yeah, I know.
And the town didn't acquire it.
It's true of many encroachments in Chatham.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, going forward, I mean, it seems like it'd be to everyone's benefit to have some sort of physical indication that this is my property and this is not my property. And it saves us going through situations like, oh, we built something on not our property.
And I, just thinking about it, it doesn't necessarily have to be a fence either. It could be, I think we would be fine with a sign that says Town Chatham Conservation Land, you know, on the Chatham property, so it's not on their property. So that could be another option that just makes it very noticeable that this is now Chatham's property, just for future owners.
Sure.
Yeah, so the rinse station, is that just, it's an outdoor shower now, I guess? In other words, well, anyway, you want us to say that it is a rinse station and that it should be used as a rinse station and not as an outdoor shower.
Right, we want to permit that. And with it, we should be adding another shrub or two into the mitigation.
For the rinse station?
For the rinse station.
Add shrubs where you're putting the blueberries on Chatham land, or?
Somewhere on the town property, we still have area that is
Okay.
back here behind 100A.
So for the purpose of, let's assume that the owner actually applies for a certificate of completion for, unlike the previous owner, for their, it'd be good to have that designated somewhere so that the agent at the time can go out there and say, I know where that is, I know where the mitigation's going to be, just on the
Oh,
diagram
yes,
itself.
yes,
Okay.
Next to that area, excuse me, where the mitigation, where you want to put the blueberries, is it invaded with invasives?
Terribly. The town has done a
So-
poor job of maintaining their conservation land.
So what I'm thinking is, what if that area were just seeded, and then you put the blueberries somewhere else where it could be better maintained out in the rest of the, on the rest of the property somewhere?
So pretty much every contiguous area that we have to a wetland on this property is invaded. So out on the coastal bank, we have all kinds of non-native invasives from the town property coming on to the subject property. Your honeysuckle, porcelain berry, bittersweet.
How about it next to maybe one of the buildings or up in the open area somewhere?
Okay, we certainly can.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, just so they can be protected.
There's a lot of lawn area between these
Yeah.
buildings that could
There's a-
easily be
There's a surplus of
turned
lawn
into.
that,
Yeah,
and that's a great idea, I think, to just seed with a fescue the town property portion. Because it's not going to get taken care of,
No,
I know it,
no, that's-
everybody knows it.
And if it maybe could be, well, you're going to meet with Nikki on that as far as where, the location, maybe? And then it would have to be on the plan too, as well? Okay.
Yeah, some nice little butterfly garden somewhere on the subject property,
Oh, yeah.
would be,
I was just
All-
gonna say, I would like instead of maybe a fescue mix, a wildflower mix.
Yes,
In
there you go.
on the town part.
I like that.
And that would have to be demarcated too, just so everybody knows it's a mitigation area?
All right, if we pull all the mitigation somewhere else on the property, some sort of demarcation along the property line, wildflower mix to the north on all the town property, and then everybody's happy.
Everybody's happy, yeah.
Okay, that's all I had, thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Anyone else?
I have one I forgot to ask.
Okay.
Thad, why do you say that the culvert is undersized?
I want to say it's a 12-inch culvert now, and they're all undersized.
To say
If we
the
were
same
putting a
thing.
new one in, it would be a 3-foot or a 6-foot box culvert, and they want the bottom to be open, so it's all muddy. If there are critters that are going through, they want that space,
So you think it's 12 inches, is that,
yeah.
yeah, it is too small, okay.
It's more for animal passage. I think it's large enough to handle the flow that goes through there.
So you're thinking of, you're just leaving that as an option for the future? Who has authority over that culvert and when and how it could be replaced?
It's a very good question. So my clients have an easement for a driveway going through there. And that easement terminates at the edge of the stone. So they would have to go to the underlying property owners, Mrs. King, who lives next door, if they wanted to venture into that. Otherwise, I'm not sure. Mosquito control must maintain the ditch. It's one of those orphaned culverts. We have
Yep.
several of those in town.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right. You have nothing?
I just have a comment. It's a great environmental benefit that you're doing away with those septic systems
yes.
and using the sewer, so,
Yeah, we mustn't lose sight of that, right?
yeah.
And we usually don't have to come in for the sewer connection plans. It's all administrative. But in this case, they want to do the other utilities, and it just made sense to bring it all together. Especially since we will be drilling the water and the sewer at the same time. And that one is a huge environmental benefit. When you see the projects that come in with the directional drilling, it gets underneath everything into the dead zone that's underneath. And there's no real damage that occurs. You have a hole at each end that's patched up, and then otherwise you can go right through. A number of years ago, we permitted the sewering of some of the shanties at the end of Barn Hill, right underneath the salt marsh, just drilled right through, and there was no negative impact.
Okay, so it sounds like this is, are we looking for a revised plan showing mitigation and anything else? I think that's about,
Nope, just a note, maybe, demarcating the two,
right.
town of Chatham versus private property, a little bit of mitigation revision, and I feel like this can go on for an order of conditions pending the submission of that plan for August 3rd.
Okay.
And I just have one other thing.
Oh, you do? Okay.
The rinse station, is that on the plan?
It is on the new plan. I submitted it to Nikki, but I haven't
Okay.
submitted it to you yet, because it would have been within the 2 weeks,
Okay,
but it is right in here.
okay, great. Okay, I'll make a motion that we send this to the work session for an order of conditions on August 3rd, 2022.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Cheryl,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
and I vote aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
All right, the next notice of intent is 50 Sea Change Lane, Ben Morgan, map 3B, parcel 81A, S1. Again, it has an SE number, but SE 35610-3564. And this was for expansion of a deck to access the pool and formalization of a view corridor.
Good afternoon. For the record, Adrian Lavolo, also the Southeast, here on behalf of the applicants. As has been said, the deck is desired to be expanded for improved access of the pool. You know, the homeowners are aging, and it's makes it easier to actually get around to it. The other aspect being the formalization of a view corridor that has been trimmed since well before the property was purchased by the current owners in 1999. So the mitigation for the deck is going to be a black oak and three inkberry bushes. We have them noted on the plan as sort of a provisional location that will be more exactly determined on the ground where the space is best suited for them. And there will also be a small pine tree that will be left in place as it is. And any trimming proposed for this view corridor would be to a height of it would leave the vegetation at a height of, at a minimum, 5 feet. That would be excluding, of course, the mitigation plantings and the small pine tree that is noted therein. So the resource area of interest is the coastal bank, and that is on the south and east sides. And as per town bylaw, the window view trimming is allowed in the NDZ. However, we're requesting a variance for it regardless. So happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make a comment on the comment you just made. I think it's also in the narrative where it says view corridors are allowed, but you're asking for it anyway. The way I read the regs is that the view corridor can be permitted. So it's not like it's just something you don't necessarily have to ask for. So it has to be approved.
We're not only asking for it, but we're also requesting a variance for it just to cover, because
Yes.
it's in that gray area with that
You are.
list.
I'm just quibbling over the language, that's
Yeah.
all.
My apologies.
I mean, I just want to make sure that we're on the same. Your language says, view corridor is allowed exception to wetlands protection laws, but a variance is requested regardless. And I'm just saying that in all cases, these sorts of things may be permitted, just to be clear. Okay, I'm going to, that little technicality aside, I'll open it up for questions right now. If anybody has any. Nobody has any? Do you have any, Bob?
Okay, when I visited the property, the homeowner invited me in, which was very nice of him, but anyway. So I went inside, and beautiful home, beautiful view, and he brought me out on the deck, the deck expansion was, he said, because of his, the grandchildren, too. It's a safety aspect to kind of extend the deck a bit. And then I noticed there were some invasives below, outside of the deck. There was some barberry, there was some privet and porcelain berry close to the deck. And I asked him if, I pointed those out, and I asked him if he would be willing to remove those. And I also noticed some English ivy that was carpeting the ground. So he was very willing to do whatever it took to remove those and maybe even, expand the area and just take out a lot of the invasives and maybe, invite either Crawford or Teresa, what's the name of the?
Blue flags.
Blue Flax over and, take care of that area. And maybe even allow for a better view and maybe there would be less pruning of the oak in that zone. And so I'm throwing that out there, and I don't know, he said he was gonna talk to you, Thad, about it. So I'm just wondering, what the conversation was.
I haven't had that conversation yet,
Oh, okay.
but
So I'd like
Very
to see
gladly
some of the
have
invasives removed, and maybe some of those oaks closest to the, if they're gonna be pruned lower for the view, it's really not the right tree to be pruned at that height at 5 feet, although they look pretty healthy. So I'm just asking whether that could be done.
sure.
So maybe if we,
Yeah, I had the same take on it. I had a similar conversation with the owner. Because I don't have particular issue with the expanding the deck. I don't quite understand the rationale for it, but whatever, it's not my business. But what we're being asked to do is to approve and formalize the continuation of a practice that should never have been occurring in the first place, that is the topping of trees for view purposes. And I talked to him a little bit about, in similar cases where we've had restoration people come in and do things like take trees out, put shrubs in so that pruning is no longer required, and everybody's much happier. So he seemed open, at least conceptually, to the idea. So I think we ought to, if he is willing to pursue that, I think that'd be a benefit. But just to approve the continued topping of oak trees and et cetera, it's not something I feel comfortable doing as a member of the Conservation Commission. I think there are better solutions out there. Obviously, they're less, a little more costly solutions, but from an ecological perspective, it's the better way to go. So that was my only reaction to the proposal itself. Putting those 3 little shrubs or whatever somewhere out there, they're just going to die and be lost. And it doesn't serve any real purpose.
But we have open areas that are,
We do, but they're way
it's
down
just
there, and
filling in.
they're just going to get overtaken and die, be forgotten about. So that was okay. So since I'm talking, there's a narrative that talks about having a view corridor at 40. Oh, it said 45, and finally realized that was a foot symbol instead of a degree symbol, right? So it's 45 parallel foot. Is
Yes.
it parallel lines, 45 feet all the way down? Is that what we're talking about?
Right
Yeah,
there.
those two right there. Okay, so that does seem like a reasonable view corridor for a property like this. It's a magnificent view that the property has, but that does seem reasonable to me. It's just all about the tree topping, so I'll stop talking about that. Anybody else?
Just on the view corridor note, if we would want to mark that in some way along the edges of the corridor so that it doesn't gradually increase over time.
Just since you mentioned, what sort of marking would you have in mind?
I wouldn't say a fence really in this case, maybe just a couple,
Couple of posts down
Posts.
closer
Yeah.
to the bottom,
Yeah,
and then either there's some markings on the deck or something, so that you can stand on the deck and look at the
Yeah.
post.
yeah.
something very
Practical.
unobvious unless you're, looking for it type of thing, like you
he's
said, a
up
few
for it, I would
posts,
put-
a couple boulders or something, just to know that we don't trim past this.
And if we have a height of 5, I'd want to have a post that comes up to at least 5 and put a birdhouse on top of each one or something. It's
Yeah,
just-
that'd be great.
Yeah. Just so that you can stand in one spot, look at it, and direct a guy to, okay, don't cut any more to the right.
Right. Yeah, just something very natural, but,
But if we arrive at the desired solution, we would never have to have anybody down there cutting anything. So,
Can I clarify what the desired solution
oh,
is?
certainly, please.
So, well, no, to stop topping oak trees, what are we suggesting? We let the oak trees grow or remove them?
Well, I'm just thinking back to similar projects, similar cases where what happened was trees were removed and replaced with shrubs.
Right.
Lots of native shrubs in the approved view corridor.
Right,
Otherwise, and therefore, no more topping has to occur.
right. So we're saying but the existing oaks that have been topped, we know that over time, that contributes to the deterioration of their health. So are we saying that they should probably be removed since they're generally not going to be healthy?
I would say leave that to the professional opinion of the restoration specialist if one is engaged.
Ah,
They may have solutions that don't occur to us laypersons. But my goal is to stop the topping of trees.
no, there's no doubt. It's bad for the tree, it's bad for the environment.
Yeah.
But it's commonly done.
It is. But, and it's been done historically here. Owner told me it was done before he moved there, and
No, yeah.
it's been done since he's moved there, so. And that's the way it used to be done, but it doesn't really need to be that way anymore.
More of a comprehensive approach.
Yeah.
Step back and do it right. Yeah.
Okay. So if we're gonna come up with a management plan, that's gonna take a little bit of time. So should we continue into September?
It's up to you, but might not be a bad idea. I don't know what your time frame is on this. With the owners, want to do right away, or?
Let's continue into the second meeting in August.
Okay,
We'll risk it. We'll push it.
okay.
See if we can do it.
the 10th
17th.
or the?
24th.
No, 24th.
20
17th is our regulation one only.
Yeah, that's a special one.
Oh, right.
That's yours.
Oh, oops. Okay.
Make a motion that we continue 50 Sea Change Lane to August 24th, 2022.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Cheryl.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
And I vote aye.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the final notice of intent is 209 Seaview Street, Town of Chatham, map 16E, parcel S26, SE10, 3565, expansion, or reconstruction and expansion of the 7th and 9th tee. I'm not sure who's representing this.
David Clark.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, David Clark, Clark Engineering, on
David.
behalf of the Town of Chatham and the Golf Advisory Committee. This golf course is owned by the town. The 7th and 9th tees have been a ongoing project for the town ever since taking ownership of the course. I started working on this back in the 90s with Dan Tobin. Back then, the golf committee came up with the idea of expanding the tee, but it was going straight out from where it is now, and obviously that would have required a very large retaining wall and a tremendous amount of fill. And over the course of the last 2 decades plus, they've tried other solutions. One of the problems was trying to get grass to grow. They changed that, gave up on the grass and changed it to artificial turf. There was erosion on the footpath down towards the 7th green. That problem was taken care of, I think, 10 plus years ago with a porous concrete walkway. That seems to be working well. But ever since the town took ownership of this, the there's always been competing tee-offs from this shared tee. You know, obviously the 7th and the 9th fairways are accessed from this tee. And so the committee got together again and came up with a different idea that didn't require the fill that the proposal 20 years ago did. So basically it's dropping down with an expanded 9th tee to get rid of some of the conflicts on the upper level, but also expanding the upper level slightly so as not to have an enormously high wall. The resource area is a small kettle hole pond. The pond is heavily vegetated with invasives almost around the entire perimeter. There is some areas where the town maintains open space, and that's where we're expanding into, so we're not going into any of the heavily vegetated areas of the buffer to the pond. That is the only resource area that we're dealing with, is the pond and the associated BVW. Part of the project is within the no disturb zone, and we've asked for a variance for that work. In the alternatives analysis, obviously there isn't any room on the property in the immediate vicinity to do the work where it would be outside the no disturb zone. We have the 6th green immediately to the east, and we have Chatham Bars Ave that we're right up tight against. You can see been out to the site, there's a post and rail fence pretty much on the property line and a very narrow path between the fence and the tee. This reconstruction allows us to improve the existing tee tremendously. Right now, that artificial turf is just placed down on very hard compacted earth, so it provides no drainage. If you look at the plan, I do show a section through the wall and the playing surface where we intend to remove all the hard compacted fill and place clean bank run gravel and build on top of that, which would afford us the opportunity to provide much more infiltration than for stormwater than what's there now. When this is done, there will actually be a reduction in runoff from this area to the pond. Because we are working in the conservation buffer and increasing site coverage, we are proposing mitigation, and Teresa Sprague from Blue Flax Design is here to talk about the mitigation plan. So if there's any questions about the Clark Engineering Plan, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thanks, David. I think our normal practice just to hear from everybody, and then we might circle back to you.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone. Teresa Sprague with Blue Flax Design here on behalf of Town of Chatham. As David pointed out, the existing conditions around the pond, the entire perimeter of the pond is pretty overwhelmed with invasive vegetation. We looked at that as an option for providing mitigation, but it's an extremely large project and not one that the golf committee is ready to take on at this time. So in lieu of that, we are proposing to stabilize the slope that's just going to be just below, so between the new lower tee and the existing vegetation around the edge of the pond. That area is currently bare, and as David pointed out, it's experiencing some erosion from runoff from the tee. So the construction or the reconstruction of the new tee will significantly improve that. And then we're proposing to, once that area is regraded and construction is complete, to seed that area with the native grass and wildflower mix, blanket that with erosion control, 100% biodegradable erosion control blanket, and then plant that area out thickly with woody vegetation, including summer sweet Clethra alnifolia, winterberry holly, and arrowwood viburnum. In addition to that, the existing tee that's just to the southwest, that tee will be abandoned. The invasive vegetation that's encroaching on that will be removed, and that will be replanted. That area will be replanted as well. So we're proposing to plant 50 native shrubs, plus the native grass and wildflower mix that I think will do a really good job helping to stabilize that steep slope as you head down towards the pond. So with that, happy to answer any questions about the proposed mitigation, which is really in the form of stabilization and helping to slow some of that water down before it reaches the invasive plant vegetation, which is directly located around the pond. Obviously, there'll be an opportunity for us to leave a small area between the invasive vegetation and the proposed new plantings so that they can be maintained, string trimmed, or pruned back to prevent them from overwhelming the newly planted vegetation.
David Clark here. And there, along with the cherry tree off the southwest corner, there is I believe it's a yew on the northwest corner that is seen its better days. It looks like it's been hacked up quite a bit over the decades, and it's right on the edge of construction, and so rather than trying to replant that, being a yew, we will modify the plans to show a replacement down low in the lower in elevation, so it doesn't become a hazard for the golfers, but it would be something equivalent to what we're proposing to remove.
Okay, Dave, thanks. So there's a tree at each end of the new tee that would come out?
Yes.
Is that basically it? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Guess I'll start. Tell me or clarify for me why that lower tee is its purpose?
Because the 9th and 7th holes share the same tee, there's a conflict with players leaving the 6th green and trying to get to the 7th, and the waiting time for folks coming up from the 8th green and trying to tee off to the 9th. So and this has been a recognized problem of by the golf committee for decades. And so, like I said, 20 years ago or so, we had a proposal to expand the tee in a similar configuration that you see now, but that lower tee was going to be up at the same level as the existing tee. So it's providing another area for teeing off that doesn't conflict with folks trying to tee off on the 7th.
Okay, thanks. I think we have somebody from the golf committee, I presume?
My name is Bruce Bogardis. I'm the chairman of the golf committee for the town. The primary purpose for the additional tee area is that it's artificial turf right now, and when Chatham bars in head the golf course, it originally was grass. They could not maintain it. The issue when golfers tee off, they take divots, so you need to move the tees around to different areas, and it just all turned to dirt. They could not grow grass. So that's why they put in, Chatham Bars Inn put in artificial turf. And it's just compacted. It's very difficult to play. It's kind of like playing at a miniature golf course, not playing at a nice golf course. So we've wanted to expand the tees, get rid of the artificial grass. You need as much teeing area as you can get so that you can move the tees around to keep the grass growing. And this is really as much as we could try to get. We would prefer more, that the USGA recommends more of an area, but we did not want to push our limit. And as you've noticed, we are giving up a small teeing area down below because we had combined the women's and a senior tee that had been built kind of where that plant schedule is. So we're giving that area up, but those tees have been there since 1895 when the course first started. And from a pond standpoint, from up by where the comment section is, at the top of the screen, there used to be a bridge in the 40s and 50s that came across to those tees. So
There was a
there's been
bridge,
lot
there
of
was a
history
bridge
in the golf
over the
course.
pond? There was a bridge?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And we have pictures of it. And some of the members of the golf committee actually used to play on that bridge.
Okay.
But we're trying to expand as little as possible, but also trying to improve the play of golf.
So would that lower tee be devoted to one hole or shared?
Yes, the lower tee would be exclusive for the 9th,
Okay.
but would not be, in part of the upper would be for the 9th.
Oh.
And it would be the golf course management that would be moving the tees around as much as they can so that the divots, and they would allow the grass to grow, and a very difficult job.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Just like you said, Bob. You should take the lead on this one. Mr. DeVecchio used to, right out of college, used to take care of this course, so he's going to say some things about it.
For the record, when I was there, the turf was in good shape because we moved the tee markers around. We probably didn't have the play that you have today, but we had good grass on that tee. For the record.
Welcome back anytime.
You got more, don't you, Bob?
I was going to suggest the mitigation plants be brought down to closer to the pond, but I didn't really see. On the east end of that pond, I think there was always a bare area. But you say there are a lot of invasives now there, Teresa?
Yeah, the whole edge of the pond is pretty thickly covered in invasive vegetation. So we're bringing that mitigation down below that new lower tee on an area that's currently just bare. It's bare slope.
Yeah, and that's kind of a tough area for plants on that slope, isn't it? So you're gonna retain
It will
water?
be, but I think once the area is regraded and the tees are reconfigured, and David's plan shows in more detail how water will be allowed to, how that will, the new tee reconfiguration, the new reconstruction will help with water management. It is a hot slope. The plants that we proposed here are plants that we would often use in like a rain garden situation because they tolerate both, regular inundation, but they'll also tolerate drought conditions.
Mhm.
So that's the purpose behind the plant recommendations for that area.
And the tee that's going to be abandoned, the woman's tee or the ladies' tee, that's heavily invaded as well, that area around the tee?
Yeah, you can see the edge of vegetation showing on the plan that's on the screen right now, and you can see that that edge of vegetation is just creeping into the area of the tee. So we'd really just be removing that invasive vegetation in that area and then replanting the area of the tee. So you can see the little squiggly line, for lack of a better description. That's the edge of the existing vegetation, and it's kind of climbing into that area of the tee right now. So we would just remove that invasive vegetation in that area just to restore that tee area.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And the cherry tree that's going to be removed, could that be pruned, or does it have to be totally removed?
I believe it has to be totally removed. I'll let David speak to that with the reconstruction of the retaining wall.
Like the U, I think over the decades, folks have taken liberties of pinching branches because if it was left to its own, I think it would be much more substantial now and definitely be in the line of play all the time. So it's right on the edge now, but and because we're expanding in that direction, it needs to come out. And we are providing a replacement for it that'll be out of the line of play and won't be subject to midnight pruning, so to speak.
You're not suggesting, David, that some of the golfers do
In their bags.
guerrilla pruning?
No, it was probably somebody trying to improve their view,
Okay.
not their lie.
Okay.
That's all I had for now, Bob.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Bob. So I guess if I were to ask the question, is that lower T really needed, the answer would be absolutely. Because the reason I ask, obviously, is because it's, we always have to look very closely at any sort of encroachment into the no disturb zone, which is what this is.
Yeah, I
So-
think the commission can make a finding that there's a net public benefit to this encroachment, similar findings the commission made with the Upweller project and the replacement of the south jog at the Fish Pier, where there was an encroachment into an actual resource area, and I think the commission did make a finding in those cases that there's a public benefit for doing that.
Let me just say, that was an environmental benefit. But golf, I'm not sure if I can lump into the same category, but I'm a non-golfer, so that's the way I would look at it.
Well, just to put it in perspective, Seaside Links, there was 27,000 rounds of golf played there last year, and the town issued 2,800 shellfish permits. It's just to put it in perspective. So I think this is a very minimal encroachment into the buffer zone, given the size of the golf course. Really, there's for a golf course, for a 9-hole golf course, I really don't think that there's a heck of a lot of hardscape associated with it within your jurisdiction, or actually on the entire golf course, other than the parking lot. I think there's some hardscape associated with some of the other tees on the other side of Seaview Street, over by Ocean View Terrace. But for the most part, this is mostly green, and the town took this by eminent domain to keep it as a golf course. So it's always been the intent of the town to maintain this and encourage use of this property as a golf course.
Yeah, understood. But of course, you understand that golf courses to environmentalists are the opposite of what environmentalists typically want to see done with a piece of land. So we'll just leave that discussion for, another time because of all the pesticides and fertilizers, et cetera. Okay, anybody else have anything? What do we, does anyone have any issues with the proposed project as it is? Okay. So we're going to have a little bit of a revision of the planting plan, is that what I'm hearing?
Yes. Yeah, we got to add one more tree for the one we're taking out on the northeast corner or northwest corner of the expanded T, that U. So just one small revision, I think we're all set.
Okay. One more question. How many thousands of golf balls do you think are in that pond?
Only Frank Hawley knows, and he's not around anymore.
Okay, all right.
So I'm sure there's, I'm probably responsible for 100 of them in there.
Okay, all right. All right, I think, Mr. Dykens, are you wishing to speak on this? Oh, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just, I hope that you approve this application. Dave's done a nice job, as has Bruce. And, initially, the town made an enormous investment in the golf course, upwards of $20 million after we lost on appeal and appealed again and lost again. But anyway, this is really the last piece of business we've got to really have a fairly stellar little 9-hole golf course right in the middle of town. The tee box as it exists now is just, it's just not workable. First of all, it's artificial turf that plays like cement. You can't even get a tee in it. You have to, it's just really, it really needs improvement. This will be a major improvement to the course and frankly, to the public enjoyment of this course for the town and others. The folks we have managing the course now, Johnson Golf has done a really good job in maintaining grass, irrigating, and keeping the course up, especially the greens and the fairways. So they'll do a good job here too. So I hope, I get the sense that you're going to endorse the application, but I really would be very thankful, and I know a bunch of golfers in town and elsewhere will be thankful as well. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Yeah, that's, I think we're probably going, looks like we're going to approve it. No matter how we personally feel about, the environmental impacts of golf courses, but I understand small course, great benefit to the town, mitigation is being provided, and that's probably the end of the story. All right.
Move that we continue 209 Seaview Street to the work session for an order of conditions on August 3rd, 2022.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, next we just have to do the continuance for the confusion with the address for 107 Main Street as it's listed, but it's actually 170 Main Street. Daniel and Catherine Ward, map 17C, parcel 33, new foundation with an addition and sewage disposal system. So we just are going to continue that until August 10th.
I'll move that we continue 170 Main Street to August 10th, 2022.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
All right, then we have a request for a field change. 32 Sea Pine Road, Mary Ellen Hewins Revocable Trust of 2018, and the Paul Hewins Revocable Trust of 2018, map 11L, parcel 1, HC, SE 103451. Proposed generator within 50-foot buffer and increased building coverage from 2,900 square feet to 2,990 square feet.
Who do we have? Who?
Thad.
Is it that?
Yeah.
I think he left.
He did.
Perhaps he thought it spoke for himself.
I was gonna say.
I don't know.
So I guess,
We can discuss it among
Yeah,
ourselves.
if we have any questions.
yeah, I
as
mean,
to
if anyone
what-
has any questions, and I can get the answers from him, and then we could, I mean, it's just a field change, so it's basically just a letter I send out saying we approved it, and if you have any conditions. So if anyone has any questions that you wanted to ask him, I can forward them along and get the answers.
All right, well, let's try to summarize the field change. It is, they're want to put a generator within the NDZ. And they're increasing the building coverage by, looks like 90 square feet,
Yes.
and that's it. And they're saying that previous mitigation accommodates the increased coverage, including the generator, which I haven't gone to run the numbers, but assuming that's true. And the increased coverage was for, does anybody remember why that was?
Yeah, it was from they initially
Oh, that's right, it's a porch.
designed it as a deck, but it's actually a porch.
It's actually a porch, okay,
Yeah.
right. Does anybody have any issues, concerns with the proposal? Yeah, you saw it. Is that a sigh I heard?
I'm just curious, with a generator, at least I'm getting one, and they have to run gas to it, and that's going,
Or propane?
Or you can have a propane tank.
true. So is this
This-
propane?
This house looks like it's going to be gas.
Well, so we're putting gas to something within 50 feet?
There may be gas lines already into the house. We have questions that,
But even if they're to the house, they also have to get to the generator, because they
Right.
have gas to the house, but
yeah,
it's
no, me too. I'm
separate.
getting a generator and they're trenching.
Yeah, so I just have a concern about having a gas line run to within 50 feet. Seems,
Well, just if it were disturbed area and it were underground,
yeah,
would you still have the same concerns?
probably.
You wouldn't? Okay.
I don't know. I mean, obviously,
We're debating.
they've got it going to the house, but
We're debating with ourselves here,
Yes,
which
we
is not the
are.
way it's
I
supposed to
know.
work.
No.
We're supposed to have a
Not at all.
representative here, so. Any other questions or concerns? Is it just that one is?
Well, it's also the location of the generator. I mean, I look at the site plan and I think there's other opportunities outside of the no disturb zone to put this. Granted, they're in the front of the house. Oh, no, wait, this is the front of the house because the pool is in the rear.
Janet, that's exactly what I was thinking, isn't there another place for the
Yeah.
generator? Because you're gonna have to, even if there is gas, there's gonna have to be a new line, there's gonna have to be some disturbance to that area to add that. Does it have to be there?
Right.
Is this a question?
Okay. So it sounds like we do have questions and concerns.
All right, so I will,
And by the way, the generator is either sitting on a concrete pad or an installed rubber pad, so that's coverage, which I don't see added in here. Now, it's not a lot, it's maybe 4 feet by 3 feet, but
can't tell. Sorry, I'm just sharing my screen real quick. I guess I didn't think about it when I was reviewing it, but is this area that's all hatched, is that like some sort of patio walkway already?
where, show me?
Down, like where it says generator right here.
Yeah,
I don't know if, I'm trying to point on my screen like people can see that.
maybe Dad's getting in. I just saw something that said that. Oh, maybe that was yours.
So where it says the 23.5,
Yeah,
is
yep.
that already like approved walkway that the generator is going on?
I wouldn't put a generator on a walkway.
Yeah, so I don't know what that hatching is. But then also, yes, the gas line is up here. So you would kind of think it would tie in up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably going to be coming through the house. The gas line's probably in the basement somewhere, and then it's just going to be going through the house and into the generator. That's what I'm thinking.
Right. All right, so I will call Thad. So we don't.
Oh, I'm sorry, Thad Eldridge is here.
They just, there was just questions on the location of the generator, and is it on something that was already approved to be, I can't tell what this hatching is, where the generator is located. And is there a better
That was just
spot?
Supposed to be lined, the generator is gonna be sitting on a pad, and the gas line was brought into the corner of the garage.
Where's the garage?
Where's the
When they
garage?
brought the gas line in. Right, to the south. They brought the gas line through the driveway, and right near that 25.1 or the 23.6, the gas line was actually brought in there.
Where?
Right here, where the two purple,
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Just a little bit to the north of that, right up near the driveway.
Oh, this one?
You got it. It was brought in right to that corner.
So how does it get to the generator? You have to continue it, correct?
Yes, they'll run a line to it. It just, I mean, that's all through lawn. It's gonna be a little ditch witch and 18 inches down.
Why can't the generator be placed closer to where that 23.6 is?
We'd have to go back to the zoning board of appeals for either a special permit or a variance. Because the generator has to meet the side yard setback.
Oh,
And you already have that permit for this location?
This location doesn't need a special permit or a variance.
because it's not within,
Because
what's
it's
it,
more than
20
25
feet?
from the side yard.
You have to be with. you
Oh,
can be
I see.
within
I see the
25
setback.
feet
I
of
see.
the property
It meets the
line.
setbacks.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Having just dealt with that.
All right.
And when we first went through this project, they weren't planning on putting in a generator, and then we lost power for several days, and they
Yeah.
said we should really put in a generator.
It's a common
A
lament.
lot of people are saying that.
Including me.
Okay, what other, so are you satisfied with
Oh, yeah.
that, Karen? or-
I'm still, I understand why it's placed there. I just am worried about the fact that gas lines are going within 50 feet. You know, if something happened, I know it's a big if, but I don't know.
You mean a gas leak in the
Yeah.
disturb zone? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, we try and protect the first 50, and here we are saying, go ahead, put a generator in it.
Well, it would be, it's natural gas, so it's not liquid, it's
True.
gas.
I mean, you know, if nobody else has a problem with it, I'm fine,
I'm
but
just-
it's just me saying it's within 50 feet.
Yeah.
And isn't there any place else on the property that it could go that was outside 50 feet? That meets the generator requirements for setbacks?
Right next to the front door.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Problem solved. Well, anyway, what does everybody else think? I'm not sure that I don't recall a similar case where we've had.
Hoping you would.
Yeah, I don't recall one. I'm trying to think of one. Don't think I remember one. I'm not particularly worried about it personally. It's underground, it's disturbed area, it's not a liquid substance
True.
there. It's gonna, if the pipe goes, it develops a leak, it's gonna rise up through the soil, and then people will smell it and they'll go fix it.
Oh, gas leak. Yeah.
Gas leak, you know, so I don't think it's gonna really
Fine.
harm.
I just hope we don't start seeing more and more of
Yeah.
these within the 50.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
set a precedent.
No, every
that-
time we allow something in the 50, we
Cringe.
cringe and we, torture
Exactly.
ourselves over it, as we should, because,
Correct.
but I'm becoming increasingly
Mary
convinced
wants
that
to
there
talk.
isn't an alternative.
Yeah, in this particular case. It's also
Yeah.
18 inches down.
Mary.
Mary?
Yeah, I agree with you that this is not necessarily a big deal. I'm just questioning, it seems like we're always the ones that have to bend, whereas it's, the only reason they're going here is because zoning isn't allowing it onto, that close to the border of the property, the side setback.
Yeah.
Why can't side setback, just, why can't that
Correct.
adjust? I'm sorry,
Why
I
do we all-
agree, Mary.
Why you're asking, why do zoning laws?
Usurp us.
logically should be next to the air conditioning equipment.
Uh-huh.
And I can see where the side setback wouldn't be met, but if you put it all there, that makes,
Okay.
that makes more sense to me, just.
I
don't
agree.
have a problem.
And just to share, this is a common sentiment with commissioners. I remember in 2008, we brought in a subdivision, And one of the commissioners cut up all the plans. We had a permit for each one. And she pushed all the buildings into all the setbacks to be out of jurisdiction. And we said, that's great. Are you going to get the variances for us? And it's tough. We have these contradictory rules all over.
Correct.
And we just do our best to thread the needle between them.
Yes, well, I don't know if this is the ditch to die in.
Probably not. I just thought I had to
Yes.
share my.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good,
They're
it's a good point, but,
very good point.
you know, why do we always have to bend over? I agree. But anyway, can we live with it?
I guess.
Okay, I think we can live with it. And,
This is the last one.
Yeah, right. And believe me, we will see generators.
yeah, and Thad, next time you go before zoning, just tell them conservation wonders why they're the ones they always have to,
Well, here comes the fun one. The
Give
zoning
way.
board of appeals doesn't write the zoning bylaw. It's the planning board that's
Right.
supposed to write the zoning bylaw.
oh,
Right.
that's true, that's
Right.
true, yeah.
Right. They just implement it.
Okay, so, and your plan, your proposal said that, the existing mitigation accommodates the extra 90 square feet?
Oh, and we had Wilkinson out here. They took care of everything out here. So certainly the additional square footage is covered.
Okay. All right,
Make a motion that we approve the field change for 32 Sea Pine Road.
Latin second.
roll call vote, Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Janet. Karen, I mean, sorry.
Aye. I thought you were voting twice.
You're twice, did I say Janet twice? Cheryl.
Abstain.
And Mary.
Aye.
And I vote aye, too. All right. Well, and Thad, how did you know to come back?
Oh, I was logging in and I was just having trouble with my microphone.
Oh, I see, okay, all right. All right, thank you.
All right, next we have the requests for certificate of compliance. They're all pretty straightforward, so if you don't mind, I'm just going to open all three of them and we'll do one vote. So the first one is 230 Stage Island Road, Stage Island Realty Trust, map 13A1, parcel D27, SE10 3184. Land management plan, add to driveway, improve path and stairs. We have 2 for 354 Bridge Street and Bonnie, map 16B, parcel 9, SE10 759, septic system, and 102846, demo and reconstruction of the garage. So 230 Stage Island, I had gone out there last March and everything was in compliance except for there was a pretty big bare area on the bank. So if you want to see it, I can pull it up. But I went out there Monday and they had seeded it with native grass and it was doing pretty well. So it's all the bare areas have been overseeded with grass, so it's good to go. 354 Bridge Street was a septic system from, the number is 759, so forever ago. So it's fine. You can't tell it's there, so. And then 2846, they never actually did the work, so it's kind of unfortunate because actually the project as proposed would have been a little better than what is there now, but there's been no changes since before they got their permit and they just didn't, do the work. So I recommend approval for all three of them.
I'll move that we approve the certificate of compliance for 230 Stage Island Road, 354 Bridge Street, SE10 759, and 354 Bridge Street, SE10 2846.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Cheryl,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
and I vote aye.
All right, the last thing I have is the minutes for July 6th, 2022.
I just have a question. When was William Dougherty off? Was he
June.
really? Yeah, so he shouldn't be listed as absent.
Okay,
Sure,
I can,
Yeah, yeah. He's,
yeah, I think the beginning of, I'll double check, but I think the beginning of the fiscal year he was,
That's what I thought. But I thought maybe I was incorrect, so. That was all I saw.
I didn't have anything. Bob doesn't have anything. Bob always has something. No?
Wow,
Okay. Guess we're ready for a motion.
great.
I'll move that we approve the minutes for July 6, 2022.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Abstain.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't there.
Yeah. You're right. And Mary?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Right, well, I predicted 3.5 hours, but we went over, so.
How'd we do?
So we do have a special meeting, just to make sure everyone is aware of it. Or when do we advertise that, the regs?
the legal ad will, what do you think? The legal ad will go out. I think we'll probably submit the legal ad on the, yeah, it'll go out on the 5th, it'll be advertised on the 10th in the paper, and then our meeting is on the 17th.
Okay. Do you advertise in other ways? Emails or anything like that?
Yeah, I have a group,
Okay. Of the regulars?
general
Yeah.
people that would be interested. I have an email group that I can just forward it all out to, the documents that we're gonna discuss.
Yeah, so I just made a new folder for the hearing. What I'll do is I'll move the drafts as they currently exist. Everybody has seen them, commented, and they've been evolving into that folder. And then we'll just send those to people and upload those onto the,
We should send PDFs.
yeah, yes, to them.
Yes.
But we need to be able to.
Yeah, I know, but
change it.
just for whatever you send out, it should be PDFs prominently marked as draft for
Drafts, there'll
discussion.
be a watermark on it,
Yes.
Draft for discussion,
yes. Yep, okay.
okay. So that's on so that'll be on the 17th.
And that's the normal time, and I believe it's over there.
Next door, okay. All right. All
I'll
right.
let you know when they're dropped into that folder, so you
Okay.
can disperse them. Okay.
I don't think I had anything else unforeseen.
Well, that just leaves us with one remaining item of business.
Move to adjourn.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I vote aye, and it's exactly 3 hours later. Oh, 3 hours later, that's right. We did do okay. All right.
Bye, Mary. Bye.